All right, we're going to go ahead and get started in just a moment. As everyone knows, this is Town Meeting Information Session 1. Sorry, NCM, I'm a little bit in your face there. We are going to cover the special town meeting warrant and the annual town meeting warrant up through the budget and the articles post-budget. And then our next information session will be the community preservation articles as well as the citizens petitions.
That's the slide.
Oh, all right, slides up there. So we'll be back here Wednesday. Town meeting is Monday, May 11th. Reminder, town meeting is at the Coakley. Information sessions here, town meeting is at the Coakley, so please be at the Coakley. There are tours available beforehand if you'd like a tour. The superintendent's going to be personally giving tours of the Coakley. But please, here Wednesday night, town meeting next Monday night. We're going to start off with the special town meeting articles. Those of you who have been through one of these information sessions before, we'll go through the articles, we'll give an explanation, similar to what's in the yellow sheet. Feel free to ask any questions. If we do skip past an article and you have a question that comes up down the road, by all means, feel free to ask the question. We do ask that this session be mostly on questions. We know sometimes people get into a little bit of a discussion, and that's certainly okay, but we do want to save the debate for town meeting, but feel free to ask your questions. If a question comes up later that you didn't have, you can always email us or email that particular department, get an answer to that question. All right, starting right off, if we're ready to go, is our traditional article at the start of the special town meeting. At the annual is our internal transfers. These are transfers needed to balance out the budget for the year. The first 4 of these are related to snow and ice. Now, snow and ice is interestingly one of the only areas in the Massachusetts fiscal landscape where you can deficit spend and make it up at the end of the year. The reason being that if we ran out of snow and ice money in the middle of the year, we'd have to stop plowing. So there's a statutory process that we are allowed to go ahead and do that. We have not had a snow and ice overage in probably 4 or 5 years. It's actually quite unique. The number that we have budgeted for snow and ice was based on a 5-year average from around 2014 to 2019, including that big winter of 2018. And then once we set that number in 2020, we did not exceed it until this year. We only exceeded it by a small amount this year. So obviously that's related to just weather changes going on. We're going to wait another year or 2 before we make any significant changes to the snow and ice budget, which we'll see. But that will close the snow and ice gap for the year. Is that a question, or was that just somebody logging on?
Admitting someone.
Okay, admitting somebody. All right. 2 facilities-related items: a elevator repair at Town Hall and the repair of a steam pipe at Town Hall. As many of you know, the Town Hall is an aging facility. It turns 100 soon, and it is starting to show its age. Fortunately, that elevator is actually not that old. The elevator was installed in the early 80s, and it was reconstructed about 6 years ago. It has suffered a critical failure. The elevator actually has to get hoisted up to be held in place while they work underground on the elevator. Unfortunately, one of the delays that we're facing, because the elevator has been closed for quite time, is there's a very limited number of crews in Massachusetts certified to do that work. So it's creating a lot of problems for us, but this is the estimated repair cost once we can get them lined up in to actually do the work. The steam pipe repair is a repair to the main steam pipe that runs along the building. It's actually under the building. Town Hall has a crawl space, and this is the main steam pipe that brings steam and heat into the building. It has finally failed after almost 100 years. So here we have a piece of equipment with a failure after 6 years, and we have something related to the building after almost 100 years. Both are large repairs. Both are costly, more than the facilities department can typically handle within their budget. We're fortunate we've not had any large facility issues the last couple of years that have had to come back before town meeting. The last item on there is for legal expenses. I think as everyone knows, the town and schools and the light department employ a number of different legal firms. We use Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, Lehane as our primary town counsel. They're on a retainer with us, but we also use labor counsel. We use airport counsel. Murphy, Hesse's retainer doesn't cover everything. They particularly don't cover litigation. We do currently have 3 land court cases right now, 1 related to a planning board decision, the other 3 related to the enterprise property. So those we do have to pay in addition to what we pay for legal counsel. This number is one of those numbers that, similarly to other guesstimates in the budget, we have a budget, we think we know what amount we're going to spend, and then it's hard to track what that number is actually going to be. If we spent no more legal dollars today, I think that budget would actually have a surplus, but we do anticipate some additional bills coming in between now and the end of the year. So that amount of money would cover that. Total is $895,000. Appropriating source is free cash. We'll pause here on Article 1 for questions. And again, we can always come back if you want to make a note and come back. We can circle back. Article 2 is an appropriation out of free cash for Mass Health and Medicaid expenditures. The school department is able to bill for certain services that they provide and recover the cost of the individuals to do that. This is the second year we're doing this. We're going to give it 2 to 3 years to see what the total recurring revenue is, and then possibly either work the items into the budget, or some towns do use a revolving fund, which we'll talk about. The Department of Revenue has some issues with that, but year 1, this worked great. I believe we took in more revenue than we actually spent on the services to bill out. So we're hopeful that will be year 2. But once we have about a good 2 or 3 years of revenue numbers and expenditure numbers, we'll be able to work that into the operating budget. We'll just become a regular part of the operating budget, or find another mechanism that we're going to routinely fund this. So again, it's just services that school staff are able to bill the federal government for that we get a revenue for. Questions on this article?
Yo.
Mr. Connolly, our Blue Hill School Committee representative.
How has the funding situation changed since the big ugly bill?
Are you talking about in general school funding?
No, I'm talking about Medicaid and
Specifically
Medicaid
Medicaid.
funding.
Mr. Luff, Superintendent of Schools, do you want to take that?
Yes, sure. Mass Health has continued funding as it has been before. That has not been impacted by the big beautiful bill at all right now. So
Okay.
we're up 150 in revenue from last year. We expect to be even more than that this fiscal year.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. In the back, Ms. Barrows.
Just out of curiosity, the reason we moved to this way of paying for these positions was for 2 interventionists, I believe, to take their place. And I'm just wondering if there's any data, that was 2 years ago maybe. Is there data around how that's working out and like supporting the roles that sort of the funding was shifted around for?
Sure, Mr. Luff, you want to pop up?
Yep. It was 2 BCBAs, board certified behavior analysts, and it was 1 speech and language pathologist. Those are services that we've been delivering for our special ed students already. This was not the behavior interventionist that we put into the budget last year, but these were the Mass Health funded positions that we could bill for. These services are given to many special ed students, so the data is within the students' IEPs and how they're doing.
Yeah. No, not for this particular, but I think the funding that was allocated to them originally, you added 2 positions at the high school level for interventionist roles, if I remember correctly, when the bill was proposed initially. And I was just curious if there was data around those roles.
We allocated 2 positions, and we moved 1 position from the operating to these funds. So those are, again, all the data is based on the individualized student IPs and the provision of services to those kids. These are separate from the behavior interventionists that we added to the overall budget last year.
Oh, they're separate from?
Yes,
Okay.
those were operating budget additions last year that have been going really well. Each school has a behavior interventionist now.
Thanks.
Yep.
Right here.
The 3 positions you had, is that through the entire school system, which is the high school, middle school? Is that through the entire?
Those are the entire school system. The speech and language pathologists and the BCBAs work district-wide.
All buildings?
Yep, and they're not added. They're positions that are already funded right now
Okay.
through the last year's allocation. So now we'll get the money back to the town, and then the town, hopefully through you, will give it back to us to continue the funding.
Thank you.
From a financial standpoint, it's worked out as intended. This is one of those quirks of municipal finance where we have to play games about where the money goes and how the money and the expenses come in, just because we have a number of regulations related to it. Other questions on this article? Article 3, appropriation for the Norwood Hospital Task Force or Norwood Hospital related expenses. Now, if this were town meeting and I started talking in general about the hospital, the moderator would probably correct me and tell me that we need to focus specifically on the article and not a larger discussion, but I'm going to take a moment, since the moderator can tell me what to do at town meeting, but not here, and just talk a little bit about where we are with the hospital and why we're asking for this. Everyone knows the backstory of the hospital closing in 2020, and then Stewart's bankruptcy several years later. We finally were able, about a year and a half ago, to get the governor's attention and form a task force to start looking into what can we do to restore hospital services to the area. I think naively then we thought it was actually about healthcare, and we come to find out that it's about securing a piece of property, and it's about an industry in the state that doesn't want hospitals to get built for some reason. And you could argue that that's opinion, but we've learned somewhat otherwise. So we know in the last, I would say, 6 to 9 months, there's actually interest from major hospital operators in Massachusetts in building a hospital. So the question then comes, well, if they're interested, why not? there's a couple of challenges, and I'll end with the largest of them. One is, believe it or not, other hospital operators have opined to the governor and leadership in the House and the Senate that Norwood should not be rebuilt because it's in their financial interest to continue to get the emergency room visits and doctor visits they get. I understand if you ran a hospital in, let's say, North Attleboro, and you were worried your hospital was going to close, you might be concerned if you were to lose business. That being said, we know that we have a critical issue here in Norfolk and surrounding communities. In Norfolk County, should be Norwood County, with the critical care transport time being 39 minutes. So that's one challenge. You have a state health policy commission that doesn't want that gets to opine on whether or not hospitals should expand, and they're naturally hostile to some of the larger hospitals. So some of these operators have interest, but they know that the health policy commission carries great weight. The Department of Public Health actually licenses hospitals, and that's through the Public Health Council, but they cannot license a hospital or tell a hospital operator what they can do unless that hospital operator applies to build a hospital. And that's on a small scale, whether you're looking to add 2 endoscopy beds or whether you're looking to build a 200-bed hospital. Well, to be able to do that, you need some sort of site control for a hospital operator to say, hey, we think we can provide this service, let's work that process with DPH. So how do you get site control? You need either a lease, which you can't actually do in Massachusetts anymore, which is fine. We don't want to go back to the world of leased hospital facilities. You need a purchase and sale or to buy a piece of property. Well, there's the first sort of half of the problem is you need to buy a piece of property to be able to talk to DPH about what you're doing, but what DPH will allow you to do also kind of helps determine the value of the property. So that's this ping pong game we seem to be playing back and forth. But the big challenge is that Medical Properties Trust has yet to sell the property. Now, the land has value as a hospital that's different than land as a commercial business. If it was just 11 acres of land in Norwood, it might be worth, I'm making this up, $15, $20 million. Hospitals are large businesses, they generate a lot of revenue, so that hospital number is significantly higher as to what you could get for it. That being said, hospitals are expensive and you can't just have anyone build them or buy them. Why Medical Properties Trust wouldn't sell for a good faith offer to a major hospital operator, knowing there's 4 or 5 companies in Massachusetts that could actually buy and build and reconstruct a hospital, is beyond us. We have tried figuring it out. Whether MPT is just holding out, as the state thinks, for an absurd number, or there's some other reason they want to keep this property on their books that they will not disclose to us. They've said that they want to sell it, and as soon as they get a good offer, they would be happy to sell it. We do know that good faith offers have been made. The property remains unsold. So, how do you force the property to get a sale? The town has some options, as does the state, number one being eminent domain. The Commonwealth actually did this with St. Elizabeth's in taking that property and giving it to, I think, BMC, and that's what we would be looking at possibly doing here. The town can do a taking. The state is actually working on a bill at the legislature to do a taking. We're not sure where that bill's going to go. Representative Rogers and Senator Rush are working every day to get it through. The legislature is a wide body that serves the entire Commonwealth. And while everyone in our area would certainly be talking about the need, I'm sure there are representatives in other areas hearing from folks who are saying, nope, we've got too many hospitals. If this gets rebuilt, it's only going to hurt other hospitals. I think that's BS. I have told everyone that works for the Commonwealth that that's BS. I've told the governor personally that's BS. But hospital operators are going to do what's in their best interest and think that less hospitals are better. The former Secretary of Health and Human Services, Kate Walsh, was a big fan of fewer hospitals being better for the industry overall. I don't know what the point of being a government is if we're just going to say fewer hospitals means the cost is going to be better for the remaining hospitals, but we don't have hospitals. If we cut half the police departments in Norfolk County, your taxes will go down because we have half the police. If we closed half the schools in Norfolk County, we would have lower education costs because we would have less schools. But what is the point of what we're actually doing when we're trying to provide services? So anyway, that bill, while it's advancing, we're not certain it's going to pass, and we want to position ourselves in the best possible way going forward that the town can step in if we're able to look at doing an eminent domain taking to force a sale of a hospital sometime maybe this fall or this coming spring. So what this appropriation does, excuse me, I think my phone is, my apologies. What this appropriation does is it doesn't take the hospital, it's not an eminent domain taking, I don't want anyone to think that's happening. That's a lengthy and complex process that has to come back to town meeting possibly a couple of different times before that would happen, and would only happen if we knew there was an operator interested. This allows us to really move forward with the next step of the technical and legal due diligence to do an eminent domain taking. Now, cities and towns in the state do eminent domain takings all the time. We're fully built out, so we do less now than we did when the town was really growing in the 20s and 30s. And it's not necessarily a complex process when you're talking about a simple property with an easily identifiable value. So if you take a single family home, that's actually fairly simple. There's a whole street full of whatever that single family home is to determine what the actual value is. Hospital economics are messy, and I don't think they're real. Every hospital operator will tell you they only operate at a 1 or 2% margin, but if you just spend all your money at the end of the year in your capital expenditures and then say you only made 1%, that's how you would do it. By that logic, if the town spent 100% of its budget at the end of the year and said we made no money this year because we spent all of it, well, of course, if you run and spend your money, you made nothing. Some of the largest hospital chains in this state are, have tens of thousands of employees and budgets that are 8, 10, 12 billion dollars, billion with a B. That being said, the process for us to take an appraisal and the firm that we would use that we've already engaged and we'd like to move forward with, Greenberg Traurig, is the same firm that the state used to take St. Elizabeth's. Actually, they used another firm, and then it kind of got messed up, and they had to call Greenberg Traurig in to fix it. But they were the ones who actually did it. They're known as the best in the industry for doing this. But there's a lot of work they need to do in getting a accurate, defensible appraisal. And then there's some other work around how that appraisal works and how they came to that. And that's important because if we go forward with an eminent domain taking, we have to pay for the property. So it's not a free, we don't get free property. There's 2 routes statutorily to take it. One is the traditional one, the town takes it by eminent domain, and then if they want to challenge the price, they can take it in court. And we need to be ready to defend that. There is an option where we can go to court and get the judge to declare a price ahead of time. That's called ADA, it's a different statutory process. That might be beneficial. That being said, both of these will require a lot of legal prep work and due diligence with this firm in particular to make sure that we're doing that right. Because if all that works out, and there's nothing to stop a sale, by the way, at any point in this process. If Bob's hospital company calls MPT and comes to a deal on the property and they sell it, great, we're off to the races. If the state bill passes, we go home and we're good, we're off to the races. But all of that work needs to be done because we need to know what that amount is, because an operator, if they were going to buy the property from us, because remember, we're not going to operate a hospital as much as I'd love to, and all the letters we've gotten about, hey, we run a light department, we run a broadband company, can we run a hospital? We can do anything in Norwood, we couldn't run a hospital. Unless we had a couple $100 billion backing us up. But whatever operator is going to come in is going to need to know what they're paying, and they're likely going to need to know that there's some risk on that. This is essentially what happened with St. E's as well. It's basically the same process. An operator said, okay, we're willing to do it, but we've got to share the risk with the state and know what we're paying, and if that number comes back from a judge or a settlement higher, we need to know how that's getting covered. So no hospital operator would spend, and I'm making this number up, $100 million, knowing that it could end up going to court and being $170 million. They're going to want to know that if this goes to court, that's what the number is actually going to be. So what this does is it's just the next phase of that process. It's frustrating. We've been at this for more than a year and a half directly. If MPT would give us the property, we'd probably already have a hospital operator there. They are intent on getting every dollar they want out of the property. They've likely gotten insurance money to possibly cover the entire cost of the property and then some. This is how the economy works with companies like this. We are the we're the smallest player in this whole thing. You have a state with a $60 billion budget that's only really concerned about whatever it is they're concerned about, other than our own local delegation, which has been fantastic. You have a company out of New York and Alabama that has billions of dollars in assets and is all over the world, and they probably don't care about Norwood and probably couldn't find that on the map. And then you've got other hospital chains who are concerned that if you build Norwood, we're going to have less ER visits and more ambulances are going to go there, and that's going to hurt our financials. And then there's us here stuck at the bottom of the poo pile trying and clawing to get something done. So no promises about what this appropriation would do other than it lets us move to the next step and possibly be back at town meeting in November with either a taking or what the next step would be. How we would probably do this if it gets scheduled out the way we'd like it to. Once we are ready, we'd likely issue a request for proposals. This is the same process, incidentally, that cities and towns do with any kind of redevelopment. We would issue a request for proposal, looking for a partner, in hopes that somebody would respond and agree to partner with us. We would then have to bring what's known as a development agreement to town meeting. That development agreement would state that this hospital operator agrees to build and construct a hospital, contingent on licensing and all these other things, and contingent on the town delivering title. That means we could buy it and sell it to them. They won't sell it to a hospital operator for a reasonable price. I don't think they'd sell it to us for a reasonable price, or perhaps the town has to take it by eminent domain. It's the same legal process that cities and towns use when they do redevelopment. Hasn't really been a lot of redevelopment lately. you think of Boston in the West End in the 40s, that was when redevelopment was big scale. You put out bids and you take property and you turn them over to other folks who are going to redevelop them. That's what we would do here. That is, of course, all several town meeting votes down the road, a lot of work by the Board of Selectmen down the road. This is just allowing us to advance to that next step where we think we could come to town meeting and say, we believe we couldn't do a taking if that's where we want to go and if we have these other operator interest. There's no world where we would just sort of take the property or buy the property on spec. The cost is too high. We would have nothing to do with it. So before we got to that point, thered have to be a pretty binding agreement about what we would do. I'll pause there because that's a lot. This is a simple article in some ways that's related to a very complicated problem that we're facing. But I will pause there and answer questions to the best I can. We'll go right here, Mr. Kenichi.
So, how did you come up with the $300,000? And is it kind of like a high number, a low number, a middle of the road number, or what?
It's the starting number of what a total litigation process would cost. We were told if you were to go through this and it were to get litigated, it's probably $1 million or $1.5 million cost all in. Now, if that got us a hospital, I think we'd pay $10 million for a hospital. We'd pay $20 million if we know it would get us a hospital back. So this is a good faith estimate by Greenberg Trauer to get us ready to do that. It is not the cost of doing that. So there would be further costs down the road, but this is that next step. And it might be that we end up with an appraisal number that is just absurd and they say this is the best number and this is the number we can defend and we're certain you could take for it. And a hospital operator might say, it's just not working. At that point, are we SOL? We would be, but we don't think the campaign stops here. We got to move forward. Yep. Well, I'll go to Catherine and then Ann.
Understand that there's a lot of things that you can't make publicly available for a number of different reasons. Is there a way to have routine or periodic updates, either through the fancy website that we've got or the Board of Selectmen, just so that the town knows the amount of work that you are bringing?
Sure. I'd like to do more. It's kind of tough because, as I told you, we know other hospital operators are going to the governor and saying you shouldn't let Norwood be rebuilt. We hear that because we meet with other hospital operators who tell us, and then we meet with our law firm who's involved in this process, and we meet with people on DPH and we piece it together. So it's hard to say, hey, this week this is the craziest, stupid thing that we heard that's going on in the state. And we keep, as a lot of people do, we're going this way, and then we're going this way, and then we're going this way, and then we think we're here. We can do more open forums, but sometimes it's, yep, we're waiting on this, or we're waiting to hear back from the governor. We are putting out a solicitation of interest at the moment. That'll go out probably in the next week or so, unless things change. Just trying to see if we can get some preliminary interest publicly from operators, because privately, more than one operator has said they're interested, and it's like, great, can you just do a big public announcement? Say, well, you know, the DPH and this and that. It's like, if you could just announce it publicly, all of our lives would be easier. I can tell you last summer I got the call from a CEO of a hospital company in Massachusetts saying they wanted to build a hospital in Norwood. Great, we're done, right? I wish we were done. But we will certainly try, as difficult as it is, because it's just a lot of gobbledygook back and forth. Ann?
In light of the other hospitals not wanting it to be built, what are their statistics for responding to medical emergencies? More people, quote, I hate to say it, dying because they can't get to everybody because the hospitals are overcrowded.
The hospitals are overcrowded throughout the Commonwealth. The best statistic that everyone in this room should know and everyone online should know and everyone should routinely email the Department of Public Health and the governor is that our critical care response time, so that's if you have a major incident like a heart attack, is 39 minutes. I'm going to say it again. If you have notes, you should write it down. 39 minutes. If you have a heart attack in Norwood or Westwood or Walpole or Canton or Dedham, or any of the surrounding towns, it's 39 minutes to get you to a facility that can treat you. Now, if you stub your toe and you break it, you can get to BI in probably 20 minutes, but there's no cath lab there, there's no stroke lab there. So it's 39 minutes. You're going into Boston or to Brockton. Now, I heard from somebody that one of the Brockton hospitals would be concerned that they would lose their good middle-class payers because this is all about money. It has nothing to do with people actually caring about healthcare, and that they would start going to Norwood. I grew up in Randolph and went to school in Brockton. Nobody in Brockton is going to drive to Norwood to go to a hospital. If you're going to get in the car and drive that far, you're going to go into Boston. And Brockton, as the crow flies, may not be that far, but getting here through the split, down 24 into Brockton, it's absurd. It's 45 minutes to an hour for us. It's 40 minutes for an ambulance. We'll go up here and then here. Yep, sorry, Carrie.
Sorry. I'm curious. I think last year that on these recommendations, it included both the Board of Selectmen and FinCom. and their votes regarding all the budget expenditures. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes, is that not in the yellow sheet for this
The
article?
FinCom recommendations and votes are not in here, and I'm curious about that.
They give their recommendations on what they call the pink sheet.
Okay.
We may have tried to add it to the yellow sheet last year. I'm a fan of everything being on one sheet for everyone, but we have a bit of a tradition in Norwood where the FinCom is a pink sheet, the selectmen put out a yellow sheet.
Oh, okay.
I think it would make sense to do it all together, but
So it would be coming?
Yes.
See it before the we vote?
did, the FinCom is here. Did they vote last week on this item?
Yes.
Oh, Mrs. Sorry.
Yeah, we,
Right in front of my face, I'm sorry.
whatever.
Mrs. Slater, go ahead. Mr. Slater is the vice chair of the Finance Commission.
We took a positive vote on this, I believe it was 5-0.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, good question. Mr. Donnelly, Board of Selectmen?
So, based on the process you just described, the task force does have, is formed by the governor, and she has asked for a recommendation. What point in the process would it be appropriate for that task force to then make a report to the governor?
Once we know there's interest, I would never say that we started the task force knowing what the report would say at the very beginning. I could speculate if I were to write that report today, it would say we need a hospital that's an acute care facility in Norwood, and we need one sooner rather than later. We're waiting until we have some sort of public acknowledgement from an operator that they are interested. We would then issue probably an interim report stating, based on everything that everyone knows, it's not a secret, we need a hospital, in particular we need an acute care hospital. And given that there is interest, either the town or the state should step in and force a transaction of the property. We do feel the state should do it. Norwood's a great town, we shouldn't have to take responsibility for the whole region, but this is too important to us that if the state is gonna just sort of look the other way, we're gonna have to do what we're gonna do. I did have a state official once tell me that the state doesn't really find hospital operators and help put hospital deals together and do stuff like that. And my reaction was, if you don't do it, I certainly don't do it, but if that's the best we're gonna get, we're gonna give it the good old college try. I'll go to Dave and then Carrie.
So just following up on what you just said, if the state does pass the bill for eminent domain, would this money not be spent, or would we still move forward to be prepared in case they don't follow it?
No, we would stop the minute that the state has taken the property. I think we would call this law firm and say, we're done, we're good, bill us what you have to now, and we're done. The process would likely stop. Now, this has been so complicated with so many backs and forths and so much BS in the way the state runs and everything else like that, that I don't know that would be the end. But if the legislature passes a bill tomorrow to take the property, we're pausing everything, and we're gonna thank them and bless them and let them finish it from there. I think, Ann?
Would the state, if they take it over, still give us a hard time about building a hospital like K.A. Mara Healy?
You know, a year ago I would have said, of course not. Given the Commonwealth, I have no idea. But I don't think they would take the property without the intention of turning it over to an operator. Does that mean that we may want 180 beds and they turn it over to somebody that only wants to build 100? I suppose that's a possibility. We don't actually control that. We're sort of, putting on a front that we do, that we control building permits and things like that. So that could happen. But if a hospital, if an acute care hospital with the core emergency services needs, we come back, we'll declare victory everywhere else. I'm sorry, Carrie, I skipped you.
Embarrassingly, I have not looked at the fancy new website, but I'm curious, is there a place on the website that includes like who's on the task force or meeting notes or even like a timeline that we could refer to before?
Yeah, absolutely. So the task force members are on there. We're updating it periodically. So much of this is behind the scenes, and it's just meetings because it's trying to get a property to transact, and that's what we've spent the bulk of the last probably 8 or 9 months doing. We started off with some data work, and the data shows what we all knew the data would show. We have terrible response times. We know there's a need for the hospital. It's quickly sort of devolved into the property is the problem. It's not like MPT's out there saying, look, we gotta get this property off our books, will somebody take it? And then we're saying, no, we want this or we want that. It's that property will not move. As I said, finally we're in May, under a year ago, so maybe 8 or 9 months ago was when we finally started hearing operators say, hey, we'd like to do this. And it's like somebody actually wants to do this, just buy the property, and then MPT has not sold the property to date. Which is the frustration. Sorry, Mr. Connolly.
Why did Brockton get their hospital up and running well before our situation?
Sure, so Brockton Hospital closed maybe 10 months ago for a period of time. There was a major fire at the hospital, so they just restored the damage that was there. When Norwood Hospital flooded, it was decided that the building was a total loss, and so they would have to completely rebuild it. And remember, that rebuilding started, and then Stewart went bankrupt. Norwood Hospital, incidentally, we've talked about this before, was profitable before it closed. It was profitable on top of paying an absurd rent payment to Medical Properties Trust. So this is a good market. Hospital operators know that, but the nature of their business, if they're not going to go on building the hospital, they'd rather they jammed emergency rooms, candidly, because it's money. I know that sounds terrible. I know we all like to think that everyone out there, and this is not the nurses or the doctors, and it's not all the administrators, but hospitals are businesses like everything else. They have to take in more money than they spend, just like local governments need to take in more than they spend, or the same amount that they spend, and they can't operate if they don't. And the cost of healthcare is so ridiculous in this state that these hospitals are always worried that they're going to lose money, and they'll claim that that's why some of the Stewart hospitals shut down. But I know for a fact that Neshoba Valley, about a year before they shut down, I was talking to their CEO, who used to work at Norwood, Dr. Sal Perla, and I asked him, I said, was Norwood Hospital profitable? This is before we got numbers from the state. And he made a funny remark at the time. He goes, well, you could say Neshoba was profitable if it wasn't for a ridiculous rent payment. This was before anyone knew about MPT or anything. And I said, that's a weird statement. Can you just answer my question, Sal? And he later did. But Neshoba probably would have been profitable if it wasn't paying, it's a small hospital, $5 or $6 million in rent. So these private equity companies or these real estate companies got in, they raped these hospitals, and they took the value, and we're stuck with the short end of the stick, unfortunately. Other questions on this article? Much more interesting than the rest of the budget. Okay, any questions, please feel free to email us. Article 4, the most exciting article of any town meeting, is unpaid bills. These are bills from a prior fiscal year that did not get paid before the fiscal year was closed, so we need a 9/10 vote at town meeting to be able to pay these bills. Merit Fire actually does inspections for us on a couple of our hood vents, and then Project Audit is actually the procurement software that we use. These were bills that were incurred, not paid in the fiscal year. This is one of those sort of anachronistic quirks of municipal finance. It was really made years ago, probably 50 or 60 years ago, to prevent like a city not paying their health insurance bill in June, taking the $1 million health insurance bill, building a park, and then saying, well, just pay that bill next year when the budget resets and it won't be a problem, we'll worry about it a year. But that's why we have this 9/10 vote requirement. Questions on unpaid bills? Yep.
Sorry, I know it's to procure something, but what is the procurement software procuring?
So great question actually. The procurement software is not procuring anything. It's where we post all of our bids and documents so that bidders can go on and log on and get that documents, and it manages that part of the process. It's actually fairly cheap software compared to, as you'll see in the budget, some other software packages that are growing at an exponential rate. Mr. Connolly.
Unpaid bills.
Yep.
How old are they? Are they more than 2 years old?
So the Merit Fire one, you'll notice, is 23, 24, and 25. That's likely a billing issue where they either didn't bill us or it came in and somebody didn't know what the bill was, so it didn't get paid. The Project Dog is from 2024.
All right, so it wasn't like it was an appropriation and wasn't paid.
No, correct. It's just a matter of, that would be a different, that would be a big no-no with the DOR. These are just bills that were incurred that just didn't get paid by the end of the fiscal year.
Okay.
As some of you know, we've had ridiculous $27 bills. Every now and then somebody's taken a $20 bill out of their pocket and paid a bill like that because we don't want to come to town meeting because we missed the $27 copier bill from 2 years ago. Questions on the special? All right, we will move on to the annual. I believe we have slide deck up. All right, the first 3 items of the article of the annual agenda are proposed for the consent agenda. Many towns use a consent agenda. Our process is that we identify articles that we feel are recurring, regular, annual articles that can be taken by one vote. Article 1 is reports of town officers and committees. Usually there's nothing at this article. It's just if there happened to be a report back on something or somebody needed to give a report, but generally not used. Article 2 is compensating balance agreements with banks. This is just something the state requires us to approve every year. This just allows the treasurer to move money between banks to get the best interest rate. It remains unclear, and DOR can never explain why you don't have the authority to do that anyway, other than saying just do this to make sure that if we've got $10 million in Bank of America and Citizens Bank can give us a better interest rate, the treasurer is allowed to move money for the best interest rate. And Article 3 is the revolving funds. Mike, can we pull up the motion that shows the revolving funds? We discussed this Saturday. Revolving funds are generally it's a type of fund that town meeting approves the top balance in it, but we're not actually putting money into these revolving funds. They're just paid by user services. So the best example would be the senior center charges $5 for lunch. It goes into the senior center revolving fund, and then they pay for the lunch. It's designed to basically be a type of user fee, if you will. We have the COA on here. The public library, which doesn't generally, we don't do book fines anymore, but in the past we would say, well, your book fine's going there, and then they replace a book that got lost in there. The tobacco enforcement and education is something the health department does. The state has a mandatory $5,000 fee for a tobacco violation. So years ago, we decided to establish a revolving fund. If a merchant does violate that, we're not looking to harm the merchant. We would take that money and simply spend it on better education. And then the extended day account, which is a large one, and again, we're not putting money into this. This is just the most that could be in that account. That's for our extended day program. We are working to solve some issues with capacity in extended day. If we were able to enroll everyone that's interested, which I think we can this fall, we're going to have more than 500 students in extended day. So it's quite a large program. But again, that's so that if you have a student in extended day, you pay into the extended day, it goes into that fund, and that's what pays for the employees at extended day, so it's not hitting the taxpayer. Questions on the consent agenda articles? Oh, yep, in the corner, go ahead.
I'm curious about the recreation extended day fund. Is there funding from the budget to supplement that program currently?
Nope, it's 100% self-funded.
Thank you for that.
Yep. It has its own full-time staff. It's overseen by the rec department, but extended day pays for extended day services. The biggest challenge we have is capacity. We do take vouchers, and we're limited, as we are in all of our things, at how many kids we can physically fit in a classroom. So the challenge is we're trying to always expand that. We know we met with our regulators recently, and we believe we can cover most of the wait list that we have. But extended day is also, as I said, 500 kids. If you look at the elementary age eligible kids, it's probably half of the elementary age eligible kids that we have just in the extended day program. So the schools only have so much physical space to be able to fit the kids. I'll go here and then up to Ms. Barrows, and then I think online.
Someone's just added to the call.
Oh, okay, great. Sorry, go ahead.
Regarding the tobacco enforcement education,
Yep.
is there any tobacco settlement money?
Well, it's a good question. Stacy Lane, I don't know if we still have tobacco settlement money coming in. It was quite, there she is.
No, we don't have tobacco
Okay.
settlement coming.
It did,
Just fine.
late 90s into the early 2000s, we did get a lot of money from tobacco settlement. I mean, a lot for a town. It was towns everywhere. Ms. Barrows?
Sorry, tangential to the extended day piece, I'm just wondering if there's anybody tracking if the number of kids enrolled in extended day was impacted by the change of school times?
Oh boy, was it ever. That did a couple of things. One of the things it did is it really killed the morning program, and that was kind of tough because we still have some people who needed it. But I remember last year we had like one parent who used it for a couple of years and really needed it, and it was one kid at a school. So we always try to find accommodations to make it happen. I want to say, Sam could correct me, we might have less than 10 kids in the morning program.
Less than 8.
Less than 8 in the morning program across all the elementary schools. So because the time got moved earlier, it killed that, and then it added on to the number of kids in the afternoon. 500 kids in extended day is huge. That's like its own, almost like its own school department. And again, our capacity up to this year was in the high 300s maybe between all the sites. And we've identified additional areas in the buildings that we think we can use to drop that down. We'll still have one or two schools that might have a wait list. We think we can get past that and figure out how to do it, but the goal is to not have a capacity issue. It's also not, it's not balanced evenly among the elementary schools, which is something that the superintendent and I talked about. We wish we could figure out exactly why, but like the Balch has next to no waiting list. I want to say the Prescott had like 80 kids on it, and Brian Riley does a great job, so I'm sure everyone's like they want him to hang out with Prescott with Brian. But it wasn't quite even, which is also frustrating because you can't really ship kids around in the afternoon either. Not only does that add to the cost, but if you're at the Callahan, we say, well, these 30 kids get on a bus and go over to Cleveland, and now you got to pick your kids up at the Cleveland. It's complicated, but our goal was no wait list.
Thank you.
Other questions on revolving funds? All right, I lost that clicker. Okay. Article 4 is free cash to reduce the tax levy. As many of you will know, we use a certain amount of free cash or surplus revenue to balance the budget. It comes forward as to reduce the tax levy. This is the state's appropriate way of doing it. You will see numbers in the budget motions. We'll get to what that means in a minute. The state, again, has some quirky laws. In theory, when the budget exceeds the tax levy, you need to reduce the tax levy by using free cash. So one could argue if you didn't use it, would just make those cuts, so you're not really saving anything in taxes, but this is a quirk of Massachusetts law as to how we would use surplus or other revenue to balance the budget. Now we are using about $7.5 million to balance the budget. That's never a great practice, but remember, this is money that's been generated by revenues that have come in under appropriation, unexpended funds from budget lines, and it's sort of being rolled forward to the next year to help balance the budget. The alternative would be to cut services, taxes would still go up, and we'd just be sitting on that money in the bank. Sitting on money in the bank is always good, but there's a balance between the needs that the town has, being fiscally responsible, and looking at what the best balance is. The Finance Commission recently did approve a policy that'll be going to the Board of Selectmen soon that looks at using free cash to balance the budget, only if we're really maintaining services, not to expand services, at least not in a significant way. Now, the number's about 7.5 million and 7.4 and some change. That number will get reduced throughout the fiscal year if state aid, for instance, comes in a little bit above where we anticipated, which I did read that the Senate is going to be a little bit more generous than the governor was in state aid, but that would reduce that amount by potentially a couple $100,000. But this is the article where we're doing that. And one of the things we did do last year, we got a question from a town meeting member. The board and the FinCom had talked about what would the if we didn't use any free cash to balance the budget, what would it look like? We've added a link in the, it's here in the presentation, I believe we sent it out to everyone, that just shows roughly what that $7.5 million budget reduction would look like. I don't know if we want to try to pull it up here. We'll see if we're,
website, yeah.
Okay, it is on the website as well. Just to show them what that would be, because we know we got that question from a town meeting member last year. Questions? Ms. Bodenhofer.
I don't believe that the FinCom has voted on that policy. We asked that it be sent to the Board of Selectmen and the school committee to get feedback from them, but none of the committees have taken
All right,
a vote.
I'm mistaken. I thought the FinCom had approved it after it was at their meeting a few weeks ago. Other questions? Do we?
Yep.
Let's see if this is visible.
I can try to zoom in.
A little tough. Anyway, it's a little tough to show here, but it does generally show, just if you were to break out that amount to different departments, what that amount would be, what that would look like, and the reductions that we would see. As most folks know, our budget is largely personnel driven. It is largely people. That means that whatever ends up getting reduced from the budget largely ends up being layoffs of positions in different departments. So it's a little tough to read on the screen here, but this is in the budget. We'll of course be going over the expense budget in just a few moments. Questions on this article? Oh, sorry, in the back there, I didn't see you.
Is the article on $7.5 million, or is it not on a specific amount?
I'm sorry, is the article, the amount, the motion would be for, it's about $7.5 million. It's 7.416. Yeah. The article is,
exact number.
yeah, it is an exact number. So we're not saying that's around 7. I'm saying that because it oscillates quite a bit. What is it, Madam Moderator?
7,361,784.
That's the number.
I need to look at my budget.
Questions on this article? All right. Keep that mic to go on a little closer.
There you go.
Article 5 is our water sewer indirects to the general fund. What this is the water sewer budget does need to pay for a portion of its costs. It's a portion of, I would say municipal costs is how we would call it, what we would call it. So this is just town meeting saying, let's take that money from the water sewer fund to help balance the overall budget because it does use a portion of the accountant's office, the treasurer's office, etc. This is again the way DOR prefers we to do that. Now you could argue that if we didn't do that, where does the money come from? Well, it would just get raised in property taxes, but it's important that water and sewer in particular pay for as much of its own cost as possible. Now, those are our water and sewer bills, but remember, your water sewer bill might be $150 a month. We have some large commercial clients whose water sewer bills are more than $100,000 a month, and not that we want to whack them inappropriately, but we want to make sure that we're bearing these costs so that way the users of the system, based on how much they use, are the ones actually paying their fair share. Home Market Foods, which is a large frozen food producer, I think is probably up to $1.5 million or $1.8 million a year in water sewer expenses. So anyway, this just treats that as a revenue, which is the statutory process to make sure it covers its portion of the budget. All right, Article 6 is the actual operating budget. We're going to go through each department's budget, sort of department by department. It goes a little quickly because some of the town hall departments in particular are relatively small. But we'll be happy to answer any questions anyone has. Just about all of our department heads are here. If you want to know what that department's doing or something about how it operates, this would be a great time to ask those questions. And again, at the end as a wrap up, we can always come back if something came to you later or you skipped something and you wanted to be able to ask a particular question about it. So starting right off, the UMass code is the Uniform Massachusetts Accounting System. It's just the state's accounting system that we have to use. This just shows the dollar increase and the percentage increase in different areas. You'll see, no surprise, that public safety comes in at quite a big increase, as it usually does most years. And the health insurance is another large driver, which I think we can see. Well, this one's a little bit different. We can see that pretty well. This is just sort of a graphical representation of schools, health insurance, debt service, police, and fire. I'll talk about health insurance as a driver of the issues we have in the budget and a major driver. We do provide health insurance as any good employer would and as is required by law to all of our employees. The town does have all in more than 1,000 employees. That budget number of in about $22 million, that is just our employer share. Our employees do pay for health insurance. There's sometimes a thought out there that public employees in Massachusetts don't pay for their health insurance. Believe me, we do. So that's actually probably 3/4 or about 80% of our total actual healthcare cost. About 70% of our employees are on health insurance. It oscillates a little bit. Obamacare a few years ago helped us out with people under 26 staying on their parents' insurance. I'm sure some of you didn't like that, but from a budget perspective, it was certainly helpful to the town. But health insurance is up over 8% this year. That alone is almost all of the levy limit increase that the town gets. That is more as a dollar amount than our new growth in most years. So that's the total additions to the tax base. It's difficult to manage. There's really no solutions. Most of our employees, if they see a 2 or 3% cost of living adjustment, anywhere from 1/3 to 1/2 of that is eaten up every year by health insurance. And we all face that. That's health insurance everywhere. It's not like health insurance is cheap anywhere. We've looked at other options. Unfortunately, we're part of a state pool that is the state itself and about 100 cities and towns in Massachusetts. It's known as the GIC, or the Group Insurance Commission. So it has some great buying power. It has a large pool. The benefit to us is that our loss ratio is often well above what we've paid in. So we couldn't really go out to bid to another insurer because they would say, well, you paid the state $26 million last year and you probably cost them $30 million last year. So we'll start at $35 million, which wouldn't be helpful to us. The benefit to the GIC is being part of such a large pool. The downside is we do lose some local control. We don't get to set co-pays and deductions. That's all set by the Group Insurance Commission. Unfortunately, it's sometimes a little bit more political than we would like the GIC to do. They were originally coming in saying they were going to make a lot of changes, and then there was some political wind, and they chose not to make any changes. Question?
The 70%, does that include retirees?
That total dollar amount includes retirees. Yeah. So most of our plans are 80-20. It's actually, I think, 79-21. There's the odd plan that's like 60-40 that nobody has. Retirees are around that amount. Once you're 65, you're on a Medicare supplementary plan, so you don't get a full regular family plan unless you have another family member in there. Those Medicare supplement plans are not too expensive. They're maybe around $3,800 a piece. Is that right, Jeff? Or about that? So that's not too bad once somebody's post 65. But you could retire at 55 if you have more than 10 years of service in and still be on a full family plan up until you're 65, which is incidentally the same everywhere in the state and with the state itself. So we're not any different in that. It's just this cost driver is killing us and it's killing our budget. 3 years of a flat health insurance budget, which wouldn't happen, but let's just say hypothetically it came in at 0% 3 years in a row, we would not need an override. It's that big of a drain on our budget, and there's just not much that we can realistically do to control it. These are all categories just over $1 million, again, just a visual representation. This is just another way of looking at it. As one could tell, our salaries are where we spend all of our money, as well as benefits costs. But that's what the town does. Every department that we have provides a service that's provided by a person, and that person is the cost. So the police department is about that officer on patrol. The fire department is the firefighter that's out there on the street. A classroom, it's the teacher that costs money. It's not the books and the desks and the electric that costs money. So we're going to jump right into the actual operating budgets. These are, Andy, did you have a question?
On the medical insurance.
Yep.
Who determines, or how is it determined how much an employee pays as far as their share goes? Is that union negotiated, or?
It's a more complicated system than that, but short answer is somewhat. We have what's known as a PEC, or a Public Employee Committee, and it's representatives from 4 different unions and a retiree representing retirees, and we have to enter into an agreement with them every 5 years to continue health insurance. So it's sort of like a union negotiation, but they sort of create a separate bargaining committee. That was created when the state changed the statute about 15 years ago, allowing cities and towns to go to the Group Insurance Commission. Now, when we went to the GIC, we saved a lot of money. They're good plans, and the town at the time did save millions of dollars, and for a while we had less than 5% increases when everyone else was at 7, 8, and 9. And most of the other municipal trusts are at 10, 12, 14, so even at 8, we're comparatively doing better, but it's killing us. So it is a negotiation, but if you don't come to an agreement, the status quo stays, and that's just the system the state created.
So there's no opportunity to ask for a little bit more contribution on the employees?
Sure, we could, if folks would be willing to negotiate that and they'd be willing to sit down and do it. With where health insurance is going, even if we shifted another 5 or 10%, it would be great for our budget and I would love it. People will be in wage cut territory and that might be where we go. It's just, it's tough. If we weren't seeing 8% increases, it'd be an easier argument. But as I said, if you're a DPW employee or an administrative assistant making 55 or 60 grand a year and you're on a family plan, what these costs are going up, it's eating up half of your cost of living adjustment. Forget about anything else. Right. As I said, we're going to start going through the town hall departments. These go a little quick because some of them are smaller departments. Please feel free to just stop me, and again, we'll wrap up at the end if you have specific questions. The selectman office, that is the salary of the admin assistant assigned to that office. The selectmen do not get a stipend. They don't get salaries. That is just the staff in that office. Now, you'll notice that number is up about 5.4%. We are at usually a 2 to 2.5% cost of living adjustment, and most town employees, as with the state and with towns everywhere, are on a step scale where until you hit a certain level of seniority, you're advancing a step that's about 3% on that step increase up until you hit sort of year 10, and then you're sort of leveling out and it's just a cost of living adjustment. Town meeting a couple of years ago approved the classification and compensation study that looked at all of our non-union employees and regraded them based on where the market was. That was something that we should probably do every 10 years. We probably went about 15 to 18 years without doing it, but that's okay. Sometimes you can kick these things out. But that's why you'll see these numbers. Sometimes if they're ranging, sometimes they'll be 1%, but sometimes they'll range between 3 to 5. It's roughly a 2.5% cost of living adjustment, and then the step scale is roughly 3%. Some of them, the way they got condensed, are a little bit higher, a little bit lower. General manager's office, this covers my office and staff. We are down 2 full-time positions in town, particularly in town halls. We're trying to narrow the budget down and do more with less. My office was one of the positions that took a hit this year by coming down 1. We're actually down 2 from where we were a few years ago. I don't know if that was the best decision I've ever made, but we're finding a way to get through. And you'll see there's another department where we've taken some staff reductions. Because it's always fun, my salary looks like it's going up a large amount. It's not going up quite that amount. As the note indicates, the actual variance is about 3.8%. When we had set the budget, that was the number that was set in the budget. So we always do budgeted year to budgeted year. Now, I'm sure folks think that town managers are overpaid. You're probably right. If anyone wants to see how my salary stacks up to other towns in Norfolk County, we have it right here and we can pass those out because it's all public record and maybe we're all overpaid, but anyway. Moving on to the Finance Commission. Again, that salary is for the Finance Commission's minutes and note taker. The Finance Commission also serves without compensation, and the main cost in their budget is just for our annual audit. It's just placed in that budget. It was done that way many years ago and we've continued to do that. Occasionally, as we know, audits are a topic of discussion in Massachusetts. The town, like every government entity, gets audited every single year. We changed up our auditors about 2 years ago because we had the same firm for probably 15 years, but we do get a full audit every single year and they're all available on the website. Finance accounting is just our finance and accounting department. You'll notice here we had some senior staff leave, replaced with junior staff. That's why that number is only up that 1.1%. You'll see that oscillate as we go through some of these smaller departments. The assessor's office, no significant changes here. We are in the process of recruiting a full-time assessor and a member of the board of assessors. Unfortunately, as many of you know, we lost Tim McDonough, a longtime assessor and longtime Norwood resident. Here we have the treasurer's office. 2 items I want to point out here. One is you'll notice the salary number is down. We did reduce a position in the treasurer's office. The last couple of years we've tried to streamline some processes. If you go back, I think 5 years ago, we were still on a weekly payroll process and we were still giving out paper checks even just I think 5 years ago. We've streamlined that. We're bi-weekly paid like the rest of the world, but this is a weird municipal thing that it's taken cities and towns so long to get there. We do bi-weekly pay. All of our departments do bi-weekly pay, and it's all electronic. We're even doing electronic reimbursements, and we're eventually going to be doing electronic AP. So as we've churned some of the paperwork and the paper stuffing out of that office, we figured this was a good time with some retirements to not fill a position. Now, one item that's up quite a bit in that line, the collections agents, that's the percentage, it's probably a bad title, that's the percentage we pay for collecting some of our revenue, particularly ambulance revenue. So we don't directly bill for ambulance revenue. We have a third-party billing agent who takes care of all that billing, and we collect revenue. Ambulance revenue, I think this year is going to exceed $3 million. So when that number goes up, it's just adjusting it to the revenue number. And it's tough because it makes it look like, well, geez, the treasurer's budget's up $100,000. We're collecting $3 million in ambulance revenue. So it's just a cost of collection, and there's no way to have them. There was a firm that takes it directly out of the money that we receive. DOR doesn't like that, but that firm also actually charges more than this one. It's a percentage of collection. So it's a bad thing that it goes up, but it's good because it means that we have ambulance revenues that we're collecting. And if ambulance revenues were ever to go down, that number would go down accordingly. Town council number, this pays for council in 4 different areas. This one is always somewhat of a guesstimate, as we never know what issues we're actually going to face. We prefer to be cautious. When we use a lawyer, it's usually because we would rather be cautious than make a mistake. Town council could opine, if anyone's interested at town meeting, our general risk profile and our management of risk, as well as our management of legal cases. It's really not all that different than other towns. In some ways, we're a little bit below because we tend to be a little bit conservative. I know Braintree a couple years ago got sued as a result of a wrongful imprisonment, $17 or $18 million, and their insurance company is not covering it. We are well insured, but we also prefer to use counsel to make sure we're crossing the I's and dotting the T's. Yep, Ms. Barrows?
So we don't have a salaried lawyer on staff in Norwood?
No, we don't. We use a firm, and we pay them. Murphy Hesse gets a retainer for our general counsel work. Some towns our size have a full-time attorney. The challenge is that the areas of law that we work in are so varied, it would be hard to find one attorney who would want to do all the work and be very good at all that work. So labor counsel is a specialized field. The airport counsel has a specialized attorney that we use. Town counsel handles our general stuff, municipal law and land use. To try to find one person who could do all that would just be a little bit too much. Not to mention the school has separate counsel for their specific, some specific education issues. And the light department employs 2 firms that they use for specific FERC regulatory stuff. It's just, we're in so many different businesses and so many different areas, one attorney couldn't do it.
So the lawyer that shows up at like zoning board and planning board meetings?
He's town counsel, so
Comes from
a firm. Yep.
Okay, that we pay for as a town.
Yeah, and the selectmen appoint town counsel, so he's officially our corporate lawyer. That firm is officially our corporate lawyer, and they assign a lead counsel who's our main representative.
How often is that reviewed? Their success, their like how they're benefiting the town, how often they're used?
So periodically, I'd say the last time we did it was about 6 or 7 years ago. The board had a bunch of town council firms come in and they interviewed. Most of these town council firms are fairly, I would never say they're the same. And if town council was here, he would be mad at me to say they're all somewhat the same, but they're lawyers in that particular industry. If you're not using Murphy Hesse, you're using KP. If you're not using KP, you're using this. Some towns have a one-off lawyer that they use that just generally is okay for that, and then they're contracting other stuff out for specialties. Questions on the town council budget? Human resources, we are unique in Norwood that our human resources department is a full town and school human resources department. The personnel board actually approved a salary increase for the HR director recently, somewhat based on that. It is rare that towns are able to share this service and have a single point of contact for it. We started this very slowly about 5 or 6 years ago, and with a new solid administration at the school department, we're able to jump fully in, and now the school department has access to an HR director who can handle internal investigations, employee issues, guidance on employment and hiring process. So it's been a bit much to do as quickly as we've done it, but we should be proud of ourselves that we have a unique shared model in Norwood. A lot of other towns, you have a town HR person and a school HR person over there, and they rarely talk. We are one employer, we have one EIN, we have one insurance portfolio. If we get sued, it's one tax base, so it's not like, the school settled the lawsuit and they can just go find the money. So we felt that from a risk management standpoint, it's better to combine these functions. And remember, that includes things like managing workers' comp, managing unemployment. So that way you don't have a department over here advising something and a department over here advising something. So I think it's been successful. I think the superintendent thinks it's been successful. More and more towns are moving towards it, but we've been successful with it here in Norwood. And as I mentioned earlier, total town school employment is over 1,000, so it is the HR director position for a large organization. Information technology, my favorite topic, and something we should look at consolidating next. You'll notice the major change here comes down at this training in school. We're not sending anyone to school. Those of you who work for a a larger company probably know you have to do those obnoxious cybersecurity trainings all the time. We have always focused on doing cybersecurity, but a little bit different. We focus on trying to be prepared. We focus on trying to recover in the event of an incident, and we like to mix up what we're doing to train our employees and even train our IT staff. Unfortunately, between our insurance company and our auditors, we're now being told that the standard is you have to have these generic, phishing systems where they come in and they send you the fake email. We've always found those aren't necessarily that effective, but between our auditors and our insurance company, we don't know that we could win a fight to tell them that they're wrong. We do maintain cyber liability insurance, which is something we also want to continue maintaining. So that was part of the discussion too, that we have to purchase these routine training and anti-phishing programs that, again, I don't think are particularly effective, but that is the way the world works. Some of the other items that are costed here are phones for employees and our townwide phone system, as well as our accounting system, which is expensive. We're probably going to have to go to the cloud in a couple of years. We didn't go to the cloud when we transitioned a few years ago to a new ERP system because I think it was, at the time, $300,000 or $400,000 more a year plus an additional startup fee, and we said we're not paying that, so we're stubbornly not paying it as long as we can. We are told that at some point we will have to go to the cloud, which realistically does nothing for us but adds a couple $100,000 in costs. Municipal software is another area where private equity is getting involved, and we're seeing some of these small software programs that you could get for a couple $1,000s all of a sudden going up by exponential numbers. Our assessing software is going up by 10% a year, and it's just because companies have got in and said, hey, everyone needs this, you can't really switch that easily, and there aren't a whole lot of alternatives, so let's start jacking up the price. We're getting better at trying to swap out software, but there are things we got 3 or 4 years ago that we would pay maybe $2,300 for social media tracking software that all of a sudden people want you to pay $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 for. We got software once that sort of managed the board's agendas, and the final cost they wanted for that after it was fully implemented was something like $40,000 a year, and we just said we're going to use Google Docs. It just gets ridiculous. But this is unfortunately an area where we're just seeing costs of some of these smaller software profiles go up and up. Ms. Barrows?
Sorry. Are there any organizations outside of the town of Norwood and organizations within the town of Norwood that the town shares data and information with?
That is a broad question. I can answer it possibly in a broad way. If you think of our website, when you go on and make a financial transaction, that's always a third party. So we don't do that. In terms of actual data sharing, Sean, I don't know. Can you answer that? In general, it's a tough question because sure, we send information to the state. Does anyone have access to our databases other than our vendors? I don't think so.
I'm thinking specifically of cameras around town.
Cameras around town. Great topic in Norwood and other towns. Chief Pat, would you like to opine on that one?
No.
No.
We don't share camera data with other towns. They get fed to the police department.
And the software company that runs the cameras and the data from the cameras is a Norwood-based.
No, it's our data. The company is our service.
What company is that?
It's Flock.
It is Flock. So we do have Flock cameras in town.
We have LPRs, yeah.
And did we have?
And we have other types of cameras in town as well.
Did we have to sign a release as a town to allow Flock to see and store the data on their servers before giving it to us?
We use their servers. They are our service provider.
So they store the data
They
on
store
the
the
Flock
data.
servers?
Yes.
Okay. And did we get any acknowledgement from Flock, the company with whom they share their data with?
They don't share their data.
Period.
They have the right to use the data to develop and to work through the program itself. So they can look at all their data that comes in, all the data that comes in from everybody that uses their service to improve the service. But they do not share or sell or distribute that data with anybody else unless we give them permission. So for example, other law enforcement agencies within New England, we share with New England states and New York because we have investigatory needs with them and they have them with us. So for example, if we had somebody that had a criminal activity in New Hampshire, a New Hampshire police department would be able to search data, and if it popped off in Norwood, in other words, if that car was seen in Norwood, they would be able to find that out. So if you think back to the case in Brown, so where everybody was saying, like, how did they find those people? That's how they found that murderer who ended up in New Hampshire. They found him through data sharing with other law enforcement agencies.
Local or federal or both?
So we don't generally share our data with federal law enforcement agencies. It's mostly local.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah, does that explain it?
Yeah, thank you.
So if you're getting towards ICE or immigration and things like that, we specifically have a limitation on that we can't use those for any of those types of searches.
And do you, is there a map around of like where we can see where cameras are within the town?
We
Like-
would not share that.
Okay.
Just because if we put that out into the public,
Yeah.
then the criminals are gonna use that.
Okay.
It would go to depth.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but there, yeah,
Track.
the balance, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a balance.
Yep.
And the chief mentioned earlier, yeah, I think we have a question online, I'll go to it in just a moment. He mentioned LPR, that stands for license plate reader, so they're not the facial recognition technology or anything like that. And we've had some form of plate reader or traffic cameras for probably 10 years, I think.
Longer than that.
Longer than that? Okay, so longer than that. I only found out about 8 years ago. And incidentally, some private companies use license plate readers for their facilities. So I don't know which ones, but you can drive onto a big box retail store and they may have one actually scanning your plate as it comes and goes.
All of them.
Yeah.
All of them. Well, that just makes us feel better. Mr. Tuttle? And, oh, sorry, actually, Ms. Slater did get me out. Ms. Slater and then Mr. Tuttle.
Question, I might have missed it, Mr. Mizuko. The 797% increase in training school, that seems to be a little bit of an outliner. Can you explain that?
Yeah, that's what I mentioned with the cybersecurity training that we're required to do now. It's sort of one of these package programs that you have to have that tests 20 employees a month for phishing and also then does these other cybersecurity related testing, training.
So we're going to pretty much see that as a go-forward item?
Correct, plus
But-
whatever the increase of purchasing that is,
Okay,
unfortunately.
Thank you.
Let me go to Mr. Tuttle and then I'll go, oh, I'm sorry.
Nobody's online.
No one
Nobody
online.
online, it was just somebody coming in. Mr. Tuttle?
Tony, I've seen it on a couple slides, longevity pay, and I understand that employees get some amount after like 10 years of service or whatever. Is that like they get one amount at 10, and if they stay for 15 years, they get an increase? Is there a table? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, it's slightly different by contract, but in a sense, it's, 10 years you get $1,000, 15 years you get a $1,500 annual longevity bonus. At 20 years, it's $2,500. Those numbers are going to be a little bit different by contract. That's different than the step scale. That's just for time with the town. So if you've served 25 years in another town, when you come here, you don't get a longevity bonus for that. It's just total years with the town. And again, it varies slightly by contract. I think, was there a, Ann, did you have a question?
Is there any opportunity to team up with surrounding towns for software licensing for some of this stuff?
I don't know that would see a license difference. Do I think we need 28 town IT departments in Norfolk County with 28 school IT departments in Norfolk County? The answer to that question is no, I don't think we do.
That's not what I meant.
Right, there's no bulk buying licensing discount, and the systems are so different. It shouldn't be that way. Again, there's 28 towns in Norfolk County. We don't need 28 different systems. We've had discussions at a very preliminary level about at some point can we create one IT function between the town, the schools, and the light department, similar to what we've done with facilities and HR. It's a little bit more complicated, but we'd like to possibly see at least looking into that in the next couple of years. I don't know that we would necessarily get a discount on purchasing software, for instance, but similar to facilities, we added some capacity and we got a much better product. Because right now, for an organization that in total is a $250 million operation with 1,000 employees, if we want to put a presentation on at night, we could ask one of our 2 IT directors to just come to that school building, or otherwise staff have to do it. We don't even have a desktop support on after 4 or 5 o'clock. So we could do much better than what we're doing, but it's time and it's money and it's just challenging. But that's probably the next great collaboration.
Mr. Ferris is also.
Mr. Ferris, I would not be an IT budget discussion without a question. Sean is ready and willing and able to answer your question.
Absolutely not. You know it. So the question is on the training. You got 30K. I take it that's per seat, and how many seats are we trying to cover?
No, it's sort of a package program that does everything we need it to do, and it's, again, X of these a year, Y of these a year, Z of these a year.
I didn't quite hear that. Sorry.
So, no, it's not a per seat cost. It's a program that allows us to do X amount of training and follow-up per year. So it will send out, correct me if I'm wrong, 30 phishing emails, and then we'll get the responses back on that, and then we're able to do 30 fake something other emails Again, this has not been our approach to cybersecurity for a while. We're sort of being forced into it.
No, I understand the need for it. That's not the question. The question is what you're buying. I mean, because I do a lot of these. So $30,000 is a big chunk, and normally, depending on the company you're working with, they're charging on a per seat cost. They don't charge it by the amount of emails. It's just given the fact that, okay, you've got X number of employees that need to go through this training and certification. So, like email security, phishing, smishing, all of that, you say, okay, fine, we drop all of these guys into a bucket, and the systems will randomly send out as many emails as necessary because somebody's going to fail and need to be retrained, or somebody's going to do something, and ideally, within the system, if you're using a good one, it's going to adjust their training automatically for them. Now, 30K covers a lot of people from what I'm seeing. That's why I'm asking who are we going through, because depending on the number of people you're covering, you could be paying an awful lot. And it really is per seat, not per service. Per service is something that hasn't been done in years.
Right, we'll get
Nobody uses that anymore.
We can get the specific vendor for you. There's a financial component that we had to purchase along with it. Jeff, you?
No, it's just additional.
Why did you have to go through the one vendor? There are dozens of security vendors out there that are fully qualified and will certify.
Correct, Jeff O'Neill, Director of Finance. So in addition to those types of training, this is our financial, treasury, so there's a lot of cybersecurity around financial transactions as well. We're not buying seat licenses for that. We are buying the classes, and we're sending people to these various trainings. And again, that's not going to be made public just based on the cybersecurity nature of that.
So you're combining the two, is what you're saying. But again, it still falls down to you're buying training classes for X number of people. So again, I don't understand how they're selling it to you.
It's based off of numbers we've used from vendors in the past. It's also including, in the past we've included schools. I'm thinking we'll probably do that again. A bigger portion.
Sorry, you included what?
The
I didn't hear you.
Yeah,
Schools.
Teachers, staff of that nature. The other part that we have to hit on is a lot of boards and committees are using email and using network resources. They turn over quite frequently. So we have to make sure we're hitting those people as well, because they may not have been on a board or a committee the last time we were.
No, believe me, I do security all the time. I understand what you're trying to cover. But what I'm asking is, you're buying this as a program of courses, and I get that. But to understand the value of the cost, it's always based on the number of seats you're trying to cover. Now, whether or not you have turnover or not doesn't really matter. You have X number of people per year you have to cover. The boards are going to have X number of people within the boards. It doesn't really matter. So when you look at the cost is really how many people you're processing through the training. So it's a per seat cost. And if you look at all the security vendors out there that provide classes, provide email testing, provide online training, provide in-class training, okay? It all breaks down to a per seat cost. That's what I'm trying to understand.
We can
You're
get you
saying a fixed number from these guys for 30K 520 based on what we do with them. And that to me is very old and very out of date and usually significantly more expensive. Which is why I'm asking the question.
Sean will have the specific number for you by town meeting on Monday. It's important to remember that we don't have all exclusive full-time staff, and that sometimes is an issue when we have our purchasing. So for instance, Google charges us a per seat cost. Well, if we have a board of 8 and we're technically supposed to give them a town meeting town email address, we're now going to spend $1,000 a year for a committee that meets quarterly. So our numbers do vary a little bit differently than a full-time enterprise, but Sean will get you those numbers and have them for town meeting on Monday night, what the cost of the core services are and the courses, as well as the per capita.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Is there another question over here? Or?
It was me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Haley. Go right ahead.
It's okay. No, I just wanted to know how many people were in these training schools, but, you know, how many times?
So again, it's,
And I get it.
okay.
So I won't bother.
All right, other questions on the IT budget? Next up is the town clerk's office. No significant changes here, staying at 4 FTEs. Our town clerk does a fantastic job managing elections and all sorts of other fun stuff. This is the cost of the elections and registrations department, which is his average cost of paying the staff at an election and the cost of an election in a given year. This does tend to oscillate based on cost if we have a busy year with a lot of elections or fewer elections. Community development, which is planning, zoning, and conservation, no significant changes here. There was a reclass. The department head there did secure a master's degree, which leads to a bump in pay. Other than that, the department is still staffed at 4. Probably a little bit lighter than similar size, bless you, whoever these communities, but we are staffed at 4. Annual town reports, we've kept this number flat after decreasing it. It's a matter of just how many of them we physically print. After years of printing so many that we would have 50, 60, 70, we've reduced the number that we print. This general government line covers a number of expenses. We charge town meeting items to this, other things of that nature, which is something related to sort of general government as a whole. Moving on to public safety, the police budget, FTE count staying the same. Total increase of public safety, 5.3%. That's pretty standard. Most public safety departments in Massachusetts generally see a 5 to 7% increase annually, at least the last 4 or 5 years they certainly have. Other than that, in an odd 666 number, which you never like to see those in the budget, no significant changes in the police budget, but I will pause here because usually we have a question, or the chief is also here to answer any questions anyone may have on the police budget or the police department.
Really?
All right, we'll come back to, we'll come back. Oh, no, wait, Ms. Angra-Pierre, you have a question.
Sorry. The amount of overtime that's currently in the budget, will that be reduced? I'm gonna say when the public safety override kicks in, we have additional staff?
Yeah, so generally what happens is with a higher staff count, we would have less need for overtime because we could absorb a little bit more when we lose officers or when we're trying to replace officers, or if somebody goes out injured or sick, or you know, all the contractual time off that we have to need. So yeah, it does help us.
Okay.
The other section of the police budget. Moving on to fire department, total increase of about 4.8%. We're seeing some increases in, I will skip ahead here, to the career incentive. We have been trying to incentivize firefighters to get degrees, and that has been successful. And on the EMT pay, up about 6%. That's actually a positive since we've left civil service. We are actually a little bit more flexible to hire more paramedics. And I want to say the last, was it 6 or 7 people have all been paramedics, John? So we have not had a stretch this long where we've hired all paramedics. If we hire somebody who's just a basic EMT, it's a lengthy school process to send them through. So the flexibility from exiting civil service has let us hire paramedics almost exclusively, which has been great. Ms. Barrows?
Just really quickly, the last 2 slides went through really quick. Are these online? You don't have to go back because they're online.
They are. We can go back. That's what we're here for, though.
It's fine. I don't mind looking at mine.
Not a problem. They are online tomorrow. Well, they'll be on, the slides will be online tomorrow. The budget's on. This is just a representative of the budget. The budget book is online. Okay, the slides will be online as well.
Thank you.
Building commissioner, no significant change here. A small increase in part-time salaries. The percentage looks large. We have 5 full-time staff plus an admin in the building department. We do have part-time inspectors that we use as well to help balance that load. And then we have some per diem inspectors. That's that substitution pay there. That's mainly the plumbing and the electrical inspector. When they are out, we make sure we maintain access to a per diem plumbing or electrical inspector. We're still seeing a heavy volume of construction in town. It's generating a lot of permits. With 2 new apartment complexes going up on East Hoyle and Lenox Street, the building department will be quite busy for probably the next 18 months until those go up. In some ways, they're less complicated than commercial construction, but if you have a 200-unit apartment complex, that is 200 bathrooms and 200 kitchens, probably more than 200 bathrooms, and really 200 separate inspections at a minimum. So there's quite a lot of work there that facilities, that the inspections department's going to have.
Yeah,
Mr. Brody.
We're on Lenox Street, please.
Sorry, what's that?
We're on Lenox Street.
It's 250, the old Savagram property.
It's what?
The old Savagram property.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, thank you.
Yep. right, I know somebody had asked previously about P&Ls for town departments, which is not really what we do. If we did do one, the building department would be wildly profitable. Emergency management, normally not much of a budget in this area, except you'll notice a large increase here for $750,000. This is the first year we're paying for our regional dispatch costs. We switched about 4 years ago. The state covers the first 3 years of that cost. And then this is about 50% of this cost. It'll go up to 75% next year, and then 100% the year after that. We switched over, as everyone knows, for a number of reasons. We're now using the Holbrook Rec, which serves about 15 communities in the area. Fortunately, we got a large update to our communication system. It was about a $9 million increase to our radio system, or $9 million upgrade to our radio system by switching. We also got some additional equipment. Fortunately, I think while we didn't plan this at the time, the call volume as it was going up, if we hadn't switched, we'd probably be looking at adding additional dispatch staff, which we'll get to when we talk about public safety. But by comparison, in the early 2000s with 4 fire dispatchers, we were doing 2,500 EMS calls a year. We're up to 7,500. So, but that's where we're booking this cost, and we will continue to book the cost there going forward. Questions? Traffic control and fire alarms. We do have to pay for our alarm box system as well as traffic lights throughout town when they do need to get repaired. We are replacing most of them. We're replacing the downtown system, but we do have a cost for streetlight repair that's not paid by the light department, as well as our alarm system and our traffic system elsewhere. It's unfortunately never cheap to actually fix one of these when there's a issue with a traffic light, or it could be as simple as a stoplight somewhere in town. Hopefully once the new system is up and running, we'll have less repairs, but we're just trying to adjust this number to the historic average. Moving into the General Public Works Department, again, a total increase of about 6.8% here. No staff changes. We are finally starting to see, after several years, the cost that you see in the general economy really starting to hit some of these budgets, where most of our items are contracted out for a couple of years. Sometimes we get in good, sometimes we have a contract end just as prices are starting to skyrocket in an area. So Mark has done his best to keep his budget as flat as possible to account for staff changes at the DPW. We are doing a DPW salary survey that we expect to be out in the next couple of months, to see where our DPW stacks up with neighboring towns in terms of their overall salary and benefits. For Public Works, I'll go through this again quickly. There are a number of sub-budgets that go for it, but feel free to just yell out if you have any specific questions. Again, just some of the minor operating items here. Engineering, also part of the Public Works Department. We have a 2 full-time staff engineering department. They do a lot of our work in-house, monitoring and managing infrastructure projects, as well as doing some in-house design for us and doing some own internal peer review for projects. Highway maintenance, this is our annual, this covers sidewalk and road construction. You'll notice we did decrease the sidewalk construction number down. Last year, there was a $950,000 sidewalk project approved by town meeting as part of a 3-year plan to increase the replace sidewalks more than we have been doing. So we decreased that number, figuring that capital appropriation is coming through for the next couple of years. And a slight increase to road construction on, which is just what we combine with what we call our Chapter 90 money for road paving. Snow and ice removal, as we said, we're keeping it flat. The 5-year average is still under $900,000. The 2-year average, of course, is $1.15 million. In discussions, we figured, let's see one more year of winter. Are we back to normal winters in New England, or was this an aberration? If next winter is like this winter, which we all hope it's not, then we're going to need to adjust this number to come in a little bit more alignment with what actual expenditures are. Yep, Sparrows?
Sorry, my brain took a little bit to catch up. I have a quick question. Back with the fire department,
Yep.
There was, and I'm sorry to go all the way back.
No worries.
There's an incentivized for education, like continuing education?
It's we call it the quid bill on the police side. It's you get a certain addition to your salary if you have a 4-year degree or a master's degree.
Right. I'm curious, why doesn't the police department have that?
They do.
Okay.
They've actually had it for years.
Okay.
Fire is just sort of catching up, not just in Norwood, but statewide. We refer to it as the quid bill, which was the state's. The state used to pay for it, believe it or not, but they paid for police officers to have a associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, or a master's degree. They would give you a set salary amount. The quid bill's from the early 80s, I think. So quid has been around for 40 years for police departments. Fire, it's just the last 5 or 10 years. People have asked the question, should firefighters be educated? And the answer is probably yes. They do run into burning buildings. but it's just taken time because these benefits don't all grow at once. Since we put in a good education incentive for the fire department, we have seen more and more of them going and getting 4-year degrees. You would be surprised how many of our firefighters have master's degrees at this point.
No, I was curious because I didn't see it in the line item for the police, so I was just curious if one was getting it or not.
Yeah, I think they're both getting it. It's costed a little differently in the police budget.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Ms. Mackwitz?
Yeah, are the classes that they take geared towards fire and police?
It has to be a degree. We don't pay for a course, and we don't pay like continuing ed. You don't get something at 15 credits or 30 credits. We have a list of degrees that we allow that have to be somewhat related to what they do. Continuing on with Public Works. Pass on ice to street lighting. We do unfortunately have to pay for street lights. Even though we own our own light department, it is one thing in the law that says even when you own your own light department, you have to still pay for street lights. Waste collection and disposal. This is mostly for monitoring services at the landfill. Everyone knows the landfill where we go on a Saturday morning and drop brush and other things off is an actual closed landfill. And there's of course a number of monitoring that has to go on there on a regular basis. Yep, question, sorry, go ahead.
State-required monitoring?
Yeah, state and federal required.
Does that go away after 25 or 30 years?
I don't think so, Mr. Ryan.
What was the question?
The monitoring that we have to do with the landfill, is that gonna go away after a certain period of time?
No, that'll continue.
Unfortunately. Almost skipped over trash, which would be terrible. This is the cost of trash removal in town. So the main cost for our municipal solid waste, these are the buckets that we put out every single week. This is another budget buster. It is happening in towns everywhere where over a 5-year period, we saw probably between a 40 to 50% increase in trash. You'll notice the total budget line going up about 10% this year. Unfortunately, the cost to remove trash is going up and up. Norwood pays for this within the tax levy, which is great. Most towns assess a trash fee outside of their tax levy. Norwood has chosen so far not to do that. We wish we didn't have to see increases in this amount because again, that 7 to 10% increase a year is just significant for the overall budget. We are entering into, I think, year 5 of our 5-year contract, year 4?
4.
We're in 4 or we're entering 4?
Entering 4.
We're entering 4. So somewhere towards the end of that, we will negotiate our next trash contract. The last time we went out and looked at it, no one had better prices than Waste Management, and there's a cost to convert. Interestingly enough, in Massachusetts, it's one of the few things you don't have to go through procurement for. So go figure, people like to joke about the trash industry being mobbed up or whatever, but somehow you don't actually have to go through procurement, but you still go and get quotes and bids, and unfortunately, one vendor came in the same or higher than the current vendor, and another one wouldn't even quote us on one of the costs. They said, well, we can do it, but we're gonna have a float for the trash cost in the 2nd or 3rd year. And we said, absolutely not. Yeah, oh, sorry, Ann.
In Norfolk County, are we the only ones who don't charge for trash pickup?
I would have to check that. It's the norm is to charge for it. We're unique in that. I don't know all of Norfolk County, and I don't know what a town like Millis does. I mean, I like to pick on them. They're kind of small and rural. They may just bring their trash still up to the dump for all I know. No?
Rentham doesn't.
Rentham doesn't? They don't charge, so it's included in the tax levy?
Yeah.
Okay, so Rentham's like us.
Smaller barrels.
Smaller barrels.
Smaller barrels.
There's
Half the size of the barrel. The recycle's the same, but the trash barrel's smaller. And then you pay $5 a bag after you fill that barrel. So I guess they do charge it.
There was a city outside of Boston, one of the M-Town, Medford, that wanted to go to every other week trash collection to save money. That would be a disaster, just FYI.
How much money did they save, though?
If it saved the whole budget, it wouldn't be worth it. I mean, you drive down the streets and you see these packed trash barrels. I would hate to see what they would be like if it was every other week. It would be a disaster. Does anyone else want to continue talking trash? All right, moving right on to the airport, everyone's favorite punching bag, the airport. The budget coming in roughly flat, not flat, but up just a couple percent for the airport. As everyone knows, we've owned and operated an airport since the 1940s. It is heavily regulated by the federal government in an odd situation where we own it and we run it, but we can't get rid of it, but we can't really tell them what to do, but we get in trouble if we don't like what they do. But we try to be one big happy family. The airport does bring some economic benefit to the town. There's a number of businesses down there. It does occupy almost 10% of our total land area, but the airport is the airport. Mark is here somewhere. There he is, Mark Raymond, our airport manager. He does a great job keeping the airport tip-top shape. Just a reminder, we sort of manage the buildings and the grounds. Once the plane takes off, that is the federal government. We don't have any control over that. Questions on the airport? Ms. Makowitz.
Any tax revenue from them?
So we get some rental revenue, we get some tax revenue from the commercial buildings that are down there. The airport charges, landing fees, and fuel flowage fees.
Jet fuel.
Just, what's that?
Jet fuel tax.
Jet fuel tax. That generally covers most of the airport's costs. Some years it's down, some years it's up. Everyone knows we had litigation several years ago that was quite costly. It may not count the legal fees, but the cost to run the airport is really in the capital, and that's usually 90% funded by the federal government. So if you looked over a 10-year period, we maybe spent $3 or $4 or $5 million in airport capital that was matched by $50, $60, $70 million by the federal government, because we could certainly not otherwise operate the airport on our own. Questions on the airport? All right.
Sorry.
Yep, no, go ahead.
Okay. I know we can't regulate the airport itself, but the businesses that are run through the airport, like the helicopter businesses, the training businesses, does the town sort of regulate their operations in terms of operating hours, or?
We have even less control over that. We have limited control over the pavement that we own and the building that we own. No,
The for-profit business that's not owned by the airport, so like the
correct.
Helicopter business that's down there.
Yep, they are allowed to operate within the FAA's rules. They lease that space. There's a process. The timing they can fly, where they fly, and how, unfortunately, is all guided by the FAA. It's a strangely regulated, overly regulated industry where we sort of have all the responsibility and the liability, but we don't actually have any control over once a plane takes off, and also with who's there and who's not there. Moving from the airport to the cemetery, again, about a total only under a percentage change here. We operate one functioning cemetery, Highland Cemetery, and of course Old Parish, which is a historic cemetery. Questions on the cemetery? Parks maintenance, the DPW does take care of parks maintenance, and this is simply where that line is. Mark and his team trying to do their best, keeping the budget flat where they can. Board of Health, total increase of just about 2.7%, no staff changes. This funds the whole Board of Health, which is the director, the assistant director, the admin, the two ACOs and 2 inspectors, and the public health nurse.
What's an ACO?
Animal Control Officer.
Thank you.
Council on Aging, a little bit of an increase there, but maintaining flat services. Our COA director is here. We have hundreds of seniors through the senior center every week. This pays for just the 5 staff and the services that they offer. This is a grant-heavy department. They receive a lot of donations. They receive a lot of grant funding from different sources to cover some of their costs and to provide the services that they provide. Veteran Services, the Veteran Services budget, we adjust the salaries based on who's in the position, and then these costs down here, the expense cost, we are required to provide the services that we provide for Veteran Services. It's a state law. We get reimbursed 75% for it. So that number isn't us spending more, spending less necessarily. It's just trying to adjust to where we're spending. So sometimes we'll cut that line. It's not that we're cutting Veteran Services. It's just looking at what we refer to as the mandatory Chapter 115 program. What is that number, and is it going up or is it going down? This is similar to a commodity cost. If we had 30 more people who needed the service in a given year, we would have to provide the service, pay the money, and then come to town meeting and move money around. Questions on the Veterans Office? Library, the only significant change here, the library's up a bit, is we several years ago absorbed a grant-funded position from the schools called the CFCE coordinator. It focuses on early child literacy from a library perspective, not a school perspective. We're able to fund it with grant funds the first year or two. We're less certain we're going to be able to fund the whole position this coming year. We know we will get some money from the grant itself, and we know we've gotten some money from the Housing Authority, but we decided that we should just make sure that the full cost is in the budget. Going forward, if we receive that money, it simply becomes free cash to the general fund when that happens. Questions on the library budget? All right, moving right along. Recreation budget, a couple of changes here. And earlier I was meeting with our finance director, and I told him to correct me when I got it wrong, because we're booking pool costs and pool revenues are in the general fund. Camps are not in the general fund. Those are part of the recreation revolving fund. So that's why you're seeing some changes here. We do believe this will be the last season that Father Max is open for a while. It'll be open for camps and extended day purposes, but sort of on a limited schedule. The pool is failing. There is a capital project next year to begin figuring out what comes next for Father Max. Sam and his team have done a good job. Some of the decreases that you see here are just, as we said, moving some of those items to the revolving fund as opposed to being in the budget. 4 full-time employees in the rec department budget. Questions on the rec department? All right, happy birthday,
The only thing
Sam.
I can say, I believe it's the last page of the catalog that got mailed out near the end, that it didn't indicate that Father Max would be closed, I believe.
Yeah, I'm more saying this is probably its last season. It will be open this season,
Oh, okay.
but somewhat limited hours.
Yeah, we put farewell to FM in there because we will proceed through the season, and then at the end we're going to do a nice celebration for the Father Max Bowl.
Thank you.
Celebrations covers some of the concerts that we do and the 4th of July parade. No changes here. This is, again, another line that when the budget is tight, we don't do anything to it, but realistically, every year the cost of running those programs goes up and up and up. Facilities, same head count in facilities. The total budget is up about 4%. Facilities has done a great job to the extent they can managing our buildings, keeping them in good shape. The last couple of days they've spent, actually since Saturday, between facilities and DPW, fixing a sewer leak at the, or sewer clog at the Callahan School, so they did a great job with that. We're seeing some of the costs increase in their budget consistent with what we're seeing across the general economy for repair costs. You'll notice some of these items, emergency roof repairs, there's a significant increase there. $11,600 doesn't get you much of a roof repair nowadays, unfortunately, so we're trying to align these costs based on where we think will realistically be for some of these items coming in. That being said, facilities is great. There's a lot of savings that we don't see that would otherwise come forward in capital projects because facilities is able to go in and take care of small projects without us having to contract them out. Facilities Director Chris Follen is here. Questions on the facilities budget? Mr. Kenichi.
Is this townwide?
Yes, it is, townwide. Yep, town and schools, all 22 of our buildings, all the school buildings, all our municipal facilities. It is one single department. All right. Moving on to debt service, this is money the town owes due to some good management of debt service for capital projects issued. We are looking at a total debt service budget that's roughly flat with the prior year. We're still continuing to get good borrowing rates when we do have to go out to borrow for capital projects. Municipal borrowing is generally well below what you would see for a mortgage rate. State assessments and charges. The state giveth and the state taketh away. The state provides aid to us, but we also have to pay for certain things, including the county, mosquito control, charter schools, and a few other items here. So we have to include this. The state makes us pay it, but they also give us money and they take it out of the money that we pay it. But these are just charges related to those items. We don't really have any control over them. These are just items we're required to pay. Oh, yeah, question in the back?
There's a line item for school choice. Can you explain a little bit what that is about?
So that is, I might defer to the superintendent. We, I don't think, take school choice in Norwood. But if we send somebody else somewhere that they choose a school choice in, we have to send a payment with that kid if that district accepts school choice.
We actually don't send them under school choice, but another district is open to school choice. Anybody from any town can go to that school regardless of what we would like, and then we have to send about $5,000 over each.
Important clarification, we're not picking them and saying, Sean, you go to school in Medfield, you can go out there. Yeah, we can't control it, but we sort of have to send the money, and rather than it hitting our budget, the state just says, well, you sent 20 kids, so here's $100,000 that we're gonna take from you, and in theory, there's a revenue in the sending town that's saying, wait, we made X money off school choice. County assessments, we do pay for Norfolk County. We're not one of the incorporated counties, unfortunately, but fortunately this number is down. We don't pay too much for the county. Regional schools, this is mostly Blue Hills. It is Norfolk Aggie, but the bulk of that number is Blue Hills. You'll notice a significant increase in the Blue Hills number, more than 20%. That really is based on the number of students we send to Blue Hills, but it's sort of a weighted average based on what the other towns in the district are doing. So we could send 5 more students and it's not a big deal, but if we send 5 more students and everyone else sends 5 less students, our proportional share somewhat explodes, which creates a problem.
How many students does that represent?
Mr. Connolly, our Blue Hills School Committee representative, how many students does Norwood have at Blue Hills?
We have about 105, if I'm not mistaken.
I was gonna say 118, so maybe my number's a little bit off, but yes. The state is changing how they let kids into VOTEC schools. We don't know what the impact of that is going to be, and obviously we're concerned. We're going to meet with the Blue Hill superintendent over the summer to sort of figure out what is going on here, and could it cause a huge shift in the numbers, which would be a concern for us. Ms. Mackwitz?
That's the lottery that you're talking about.
Yep.
It's already impacting kids.
Yeah, they're going from where they would sort of choose who to let into a true lottery system, and we just don't know what the numbers are going to end up meaning for us and the other towns in Blue Hills.
So does that mean that if less students from Norwood go to Blue Hills, our costs go down? Or
Correct.
we don't know yet?
Well, we don't know. We don't know the impact. If less students go from Norwood, yes, our costs will go down. If more students go, then the cost would go up. I mean, we may see a year where there's 40 or 50 more kids than we have just based on the numbers, but we won't know.
And the second reason why that number is gone up is the municipal growth factor.
Correct.
Which is the state, again.
Everything's formula based.
Yeah.
I think the state needs to stay out of our town.
I think you're right on that one. Fortunately, due to some good management,
That point with them?
we will argue that point when we get done with our information session tonight, Mr. Connolly, I promise you. Retirement pension contributions, no significant change there. That's our state mandatory retirement contribution. Incidentally, for teachers, the state pays the cost of teacher retirement. So I guess we want them to stay out with everything but that, come to think of it. But. Workers' compensation, due to moving money into the workers' comp fund at the fall town meeting, we were able to decrease this number and the number sort of across the board for what we pay for workers' compensation. All right, Owen? Health insurance, we talked about this earlier, 8.41%. You'll notice that that is just a significant increase. It is almost double our entire new growth number. Questions on health insurance? Okay. Medicare, we are required to pay Medicare. This just trends with the general growth in the budget. We're always trying to sort of play catch up. Capital equipment, we do book some capital equipment in the town budget line, mainly vehicles that are sort of rolling stock. The primary change this year is we've been replacing 4 police cruisers a year. We would like to go to 5 police cruisers a year for a couple of reasons. We are beating the cruisers up a bit more. We also don't get vehicles from drug seizures like we used to. We used to always be able to count on sometimes a couple vehicles in a year, and your undercovers or your detectives could drive those. The system has changed. They're just not as available as they used to be, so we now have unmarked cars that we have to replace, whereas before we could just take vehicles from drug seizures. Questions on the capital? Liability insurance, fortunately, going down a little bit, up in some areas. We recently went out to bid for a new insurance carrier, and we're not sure we're going to change, but our insurance carrier, who insures most of the cities and towns in Massachusetts, was going to charge us about a 4% increase. When they saw that we went out to bid, it conveniently went down to a 1% decrease. So that may have just been keeping them on their toes, but fortunately, because we had to absorb some cost increases for the Coakley fully being on our insurance, we're able to get some good general liability costs. And of course, unemployment is down based on where we've been seeing those numbers come in. We don't use UI here. We are a direct payer of unemployment. We've looked at where we reasonably have been the last few years, and we're able to take a decrease there. That is our general liability for all of our property, all of our liability. And as you know, we have a reserve fund every year, $150,000 for any of the general government budget items that may be, we don't move money around within the budget in a year, so any unforeseen expenses in general government. Just to be clear, we did discuss this Saturday, this is not something we want to do. It's not, hey, we want to buy another police cruiser, let's go to the reserve fund. It's gas prices went up unexpectedly when we cover gas. And every year we transfer some money to stabilization, our OPEB fund, and our compensated absences, which is where we pay for vacation and sick time payouts from. All right, second part of the night, and it probably will be done much better than I did, but all the same interesting. Mr. Luff, the floor is yours for the school budget.
Now, since Mr. Mizuko was just showing things that were greater than 3%, I'm at 2.96, so I think I'm done, right? We're good?
So
kidding. So moved. Thank you all for having me here tonight. Tim Luff, Superintendent. Sean Mannion, Assistant Superintendent of Finance, is here as well. We'll share with you. I will first share, we do have budget books here separately. We have a box out here if you would like a copy. We also have these online as well.
Yeah, you can scan a QR code. There's pages over there. We could pass that around if people want.
Do you want to pass them around?
Do you want me to pass
Raise your
books
hand.
around?
We're going to pass it out to you.
Okay.
Tim, hold the mic up a little.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. and I'll walk through this. So the budget book's gonna have a lot of supporting detail for you. Again, QR code online, you'll be able to access it if you don't want the hard copy, and the hard copy is there for you as well. So as I said, 2.96% is what we're looking at this year, and that is a $67,222,432 budget, increase over FY26. Obviously, this budget's been developed in a comprehensive process with all of our town partners, our school committee, our town constituents, and it really represents a level service budget, meaning services that we're providing to kids this year are similar to what we're going to be providing next year. I want to share a little bit about our per pupil expenditures, although I think I missed a slide. The Norwood enrollment. Sorry, let me start here. There's always questions about our enrollment and what our student populations are. So what you have here is 3 years worth of enrollment data. So this column here is October of 2023, this one's 24, and this one's 25. And I shared those because these are October 1 counts, snapshots in time that the state uses to determine what numbers of percentage of students we have, whether it's special education, English language education, low-income students, high-need students, and that assists them in Chapter 70 funding for us in the following year. And these are snapshots in time, but as you can see, right now we have about 3,500 students in Norwood. The parentheses under there is for the additional out-of-district students that we send out-of-district for special ed purposes. So our special ed population is about 23.5%, and that has gone down since the last few years. Out-of-district numbers are about 68. That has gone down since last year. Slight jump, or about the same since October 1 of 23. Our English language learning students, 540. So that has gone down from 16.2% to 16.6%. We're down to 15.5%. Our first language that are not English, that has also gone down from last year, down to 29.5%. Low income is 40.3%, and high needs is 55.8%. Now please note that you can't look at these individually because one student might be in multiple categories, okay? So when I look at these numbers, some of these low-income students might also be some of these special education students. But it's important to note, as these are calculated, this is how the state helps determine our funding. Now, these numbers here, the special ed, out-of-district, ELL, first language, not English, those are all calculated in October. Low income and high needs come later. Low income is identified by things like economic disadvantage, all of the public state assistance programs, different folks that are in foster care, and folks that are certified as low income. That is nothing that we have control over in Norwood, nor is the ELL population or the first language not English, and even the special ed population is a very structured process to identify students. So we don't have much control over these numbers. And the high needs column, our number, is kind of a mixture of all of these put together. So when the state looks at our high needs population, they look at our low income, they look at our first language not English, they look at ELL, they look at special ed, and they say, okay, so that is your high needs population, and that is how we're going to kind of assess your need and what you need to run your public schools. I've been asked regularly, so if that's our number, if that's our high needs number, what about the local communities around us, the Cantons, the Dedhams, the Westwoods? And so this year I did a slide deck for you that kind of shows the expenditures that we pay compared to the local. You can't, well, it's right in the budget book, but I'll.
What page of the budget book?
In the budget book, there's a per pupil section. You'll find all this starting on page 71.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, 70. It might not be exactly as it shows.
That's
up
okay.
there, but you'll see it.
I'll read it for you. So as you can see, Norwood's per pupil expenditure is $23,366. That has actually come up from each year. You can see it compared to the state average in FY24 of $23,165, so we're just above state average. You can see towns like Millis of $22,258, Canton's $23,539, Westwood spends $25,156, Dedham spends $27,129. And these are just graph comparisons of where we are compared to the state. So here's Norwood here, and here's the mass average here. Again, some of these expenditures might be higher and lower depending on the high need students that you have in your district. And in some cases, affluent towns might spend more money on their students from the operating funds. So now I will go and look at enrollment comparisons, because it's not just about those per pupil expenditures, it's about the who is in Norwood compared to the surrounding towns. So as you can see, Norwood has a special ed population, as I shared, 23.5%, an ELL population of 15.5%, first language not English 29.5%, low income 40.3%, and high needs 55.8%. So now we'll jump over, and I want to focus on the low income area, because these are the areas that we don't have control of. And you'll see Canton's at 22.1%, Dedham 26.2%, Westwood 7.7%, Foxborough 21.1%, Medfield 6.5%, Medway 16.2%, Millis 17.4%, Sharon 11.9%, Walpole 14.7%. And then that high needs number, because of everything else, is just as much of a difference. So where Norwood is 55.8%, we're at least 20% higher or more than all the other districts in the area. So those are our surrounding districts, and it just shows the population in Norwood is not quite like the populations around us, and that we will have higher needs and more of a need for servicing of students due to those high needs in the district. Now, the state compares us. They take something called a DART scenario, and they compare us to districts they think we're like, and I'm going to share those with you next. And so they compare us to places like Cambridge, which I really believe is an outlier here, so it is one of the ones there, but I'm going to just put it out there because that's the state data. But Falmouth and Gloucester and Leominster and Medford and Norwood and Salem and Stoughton, probably the closest one to us, Westfield, Weymouth, and Woburn. And you can see their low income rates are similar. And you can see their special education rates are similar. I'm always asked, why are our special ed rates so high? It's comparable to those towns they're comparing us to. And our ELL population is somewhat similar. There's some lower numbers there, but around 16.6. And then you can see where we're spending compared to those towns at 23,366, and we're right in the middle. So compared to the towns the state's comparing us to, with similar high need students, with similar low income status, with similar special ed populations, we're kind of right in the average zone of where those towns are. But I wanted to share that with you just because, I know a lot of the conversation is around, well, why is Westwood, spending less on this? Why are there more or less kids out of districts in Canton? This is why, right? Because we have a population that requires these additional services for some kids. Should I stop there? I should stop there.
Tim,
Please.
would you have a slide just showing teacher-student ratio?
I don't have one here. Where are you seeing 20? For us, you mean, in Norwood?
Yeah.
I don't have a slide deck for that here. It's something that I can pull up at some point. Our class sizes are pretty, the ratios are pretty.
We fall high end, middle end.
We're high end. I mean, you're talking about, it depends on the classrooms. So when you have 6 elementary schools, right, it's going to be really challenging to have some numbers. Some of those classrooms could be anywhere from 23 to 1. Some could be 19, 18, depending on the class.
Fair enough. Thank you.
I know that other districts are beginning to challenge this methodology. How, is there a set formula that they're using? Why aren't we being compared to the towns that are in Norfolk County as opposed to someplace like Cambridge, which is a portion of Boston?
Well, they're looking at the low-income population, those things that we have no control of, right? So the low-income population and then the high-needs population that comes along with that. So that's what they're looking at, because when they provide funding for us, they want to say, well, we have to compare to the towns that are similarly situated in terms of those low-income, special ed, ELL, and high-needs populations. Because if you look at the towns that I shared before, the Cantons, the Dedhams, their high-needs populations are significantly less than Norwood's. Again, low-income in Canton 22, Dedham 26, Westwood 7, Foxborough 21, Medfield 6, Medway 16, Millis 17, Sharon 11, Walpole 14, Norwood 40.3. So they want to compare us to towns that are similarly situated in those categories in terms of what we need. Does that make sense?
No. But I get what you're saying.
Fair enough. Any other questions on the enrollment slides while I'm sitting on them? Okay. With that said, this year's budget process, again, we went through all the detail from early October. We started this process, probably earlier than that. I went through the whole town process to really determine and get down to a budget that we thought was feasible, that would support all of the students in Norwood, but also support the constituents. So just a quick story. So our preliminary budget that we put out at the end of December, beginning of January, was the same number, which was a 2.96% increase. Now, there were increases to payroll expenses, which was most of the increase, but there's also a significant decrease, 7.5%, to non-payroll things. And I'll share what that was as we go on. This budget included, at the time we did the preliminary, was all required contractual increases. So we had contracts that we had to complete for year 3 of Unit A and Unit B, which are going to be ending next year. Year 2 of our paraprofessional contract, year 1 of our administrative assistant contract, and all increases for non-represented staff. This is a level service continuation of all programs that we provide now for our students, including the improvements for CMS that we put into place, and including all of the things that we need to do for K through 4 redistricting. Keeping in mind that we have 250 plus elementary students moving across the district next year while we create 6 K through 4 elementary schools and remove the kindergarten school with it. It included a reduction of overall out-of-district tuitions of about $1.1 million. We have reduced our numbers of tuitions. We've reduced some of the out-of-district placements that we've had in residential placements. We've done a really good job trying to isolate and bring students back where we can. It includes no reserve fund, right? We're not using the reserve fund that we had last year that was part of the budget. That is now allocated about 1.5 million or so, and that is in the reserve. We will only use that if we absolutely need to. So thank you for supporting that last year, but that is not included here. It includes professional development that we're doing for an English language arts refresh. We look at curriculum refreshes about every 6 years or so, and this is a refresh of our K through 4 English language arts program, as well as 5th grade through 12th grade mathematics. And there's about $81,000 in there for professional development for our staff to implement that, and about $250,000 for the curriculum itself. We are finalizing that with $250,000 that we had in this fiscal year's budget, so we tried to balance that, knowing that it was coming from year to year. It includes some reductions of vacant positions that we had and some reorganizations. It includes a reduction in IT staff technology. Now, there's about $82,000 that is not in this budget that's supported for staff technology that's coming out of the CMS building project. That in FY28 we will likely see again. I just want you to be aware of that. Transportation was mostly level funded in the preliminary budget. And we, at that point, had about $300,000 we were seeking in the budget for the Mass Health Fund. So again, this is back in December, January. Again, with their revenue being at about $530,000 for FY25. Now, there are 44.3 positions, such as special education, Title I interventionists, that are funded through grants, right? So not just the operating budget, that's additional positions that we have. And there's approximately $2.6 million received in grant funding and revolving funds that we have in Norwood. So needs that we didn't address originally back in December, January were the healthcare pathway teachers and the business pathway teachers at the high school. There were requests. So we have kids that are going through the programs that are primarily getting a lot of their instruction online through these programs. Now they do some amazing things, but they had the online instruction. So there was a request to place 2 teachers in the budget at the time. There was a significant amount of funding that we're sending to BYU to be able to assist to be able to have those online courses. We did not address a middle school social worker or adjustment counselor. That was out of a recommendation from the student service audit that you guys had generously allocated funds towards. We did not address additional bus for overcrowding for middle school transportation. Kids just are taking the bus to the Coakley this year, and we had some pretty good overcrowding. So in this original budget, we did not do that. And we didn't have any possible staff required for unanticipated enrollments for kindergarten registration. We're still not quite sure where we're going to land with kindergarten registration. We're pretty stable, but we do expect to have some more registrations over the course of the summer. So we just want to be prepared with that.
Sorry, quick question.
Please.
BYU, Brigham Young?
No, it is. Is it Brigham? It might be Brigham Young.
And how do you guys vet your courses that you offer online?
Well, that's varied depending on what it is, but we will go through different vendors to secure, not bids, but to give us information on what they are doing, what they have, and provide them that way.
What is the BYU there if it's not Brigham Young?
It is
Oh, it is Brigham Young.
I think it is Brigham Young. I'd have to talk to our healthcare pathway folks about that, and business care pathway folks about that, but that is a tuition-based thing that we use. I will say that any data that we do is protected through a data privacy agreement that we have through.
No, that's not a data question.
Okay.
It's just more about a content, that's a content question.
Okay.
How your content is vetted.
Okay, yep.
What is the criterion for being able to take a bus?
Oh.
In the olden days, when I was in school, you had to be 1.25 miles away from the school.
Yeah, so what I will share, something that we did not do originally, and as we get through that, is we considered in this budget, and I think, is it here? We considered in this cost reduction consideration, right now, students have to pay if they are over 2 miles or more. Or
Free over 2 miles.
free over 2 miles, but if you're in kindergarten, it was free transportation last year. It's not going to be free next year. So it's 2 miles. It's 2 miles or under. Essentially, you're required to.
But we probably bus, it depends on safety issues, but we're busing anywhere from elementary from 1 mile up to above 1 mile. And same with middle school, there's some busing under 1 mile.
Yeah, right now, pretty much everybody's eligible to take the bus.
Yeah.
Right now, everyone's eligible to take the
If
bus.
they can walk, we're not gonna create a spot for somebody that's a half mile from school, but the stops start at about 1 mile.
And if they're under 2 miles, they pay a fee. Okay. High school would also get transportation, but they would, if they're over, they'd pay a fee, no matter what. So K through 6 were required to provide free transportation 2 miles or more. Okay. Let me go back to that last slide, if you don't mind. Okay. I got that one. All right, so some cost reduction considerations that we put into place when we started this process. We considered removing an ELE director position that we had in district. We had a resignation, and we kind of held that in advance, and we were looking at that position for about $130,000. We were considering reconfiguration of our secretaries at our central office due to some retirements. We looked at reducing the Unit B, Manager of TV and Video Services, for approximately $60,000. Now that's Jack Tolman. We love Jack. He's no longer going to be working for the schools next year. But we were able to look at supporting some of the things he did, but also reducing some funds from the budget to be able to address some cost reductions. We also considered using more circuit breaker turnover savings, and we considered restricting ridership on buses from the middle and high school for those who reside 1 mile or more from the school. Those were all considerations that we had going into the preliminary budget. So how we got here today? Well, when we had the final approved budget, we still landed at 2.96%. We didn't change the number whatsoever. We updated fees to include a 2% increase across the board. We did a whole big fee structure question. What if we did something where we had each program was funded with 20% of fees in total structure? That seemed problematic, but we were going to continue to work on that a little bit. For now, we looked at 2% across the board, which is going to bring in about $22,000. We added an additional bus at the request of the school committee and constituents that requested for the middle school that we're paying for through increase in fee revenue and reductions. The 2% increase is going to take care of about $9,000 of that, and the fee increase due to participation in the elementary redistricting is going to be about $38,000. So whereas prior there were many students that lived under 1 mile from their school, now there will be about 198 total students that are 2 miles or more from their school, because we redistricted closer to the schools. Therefore, all the other students will have a fee to pay. So there will be more fees for transportation coming in next year, and that will increase that. We did reduce the ELE director position. We added a department chair to cover that with some leadership stipends at $10,000. We added an additional paraprofessional for 1K classroom that we had to do is we transferred all the kindergarten teachers all over the district. We did have 1 classroom remaining that required a paraprofessional. All kindergarten classrooms currently do have paraprofessionals. We wanted to support that. We are holding an elementary teacher in abeyance using those funds too, not knowing what's going to happen with kindergarten registration as the spring and the summer kind of ensue. We are monitoring all of our enrollments as they come in. As of now, we do not need that. We do anticipate we will, so we're holding that in advance. And we're also allocating $14,000 that ELE position towards the bus to be able to fund that. With the reduction of the TV studio manager position of $111,000, we're using $50,000 to cover all those house manager supports, those things that happen within the auditoriums. An elementary paraprofessional that we require also along with that teacher of $30,000 there, and the additional allocation toward the bus of $31,000 using those funds. We are going to use $91,000 additional of circuit breaker to support the healthcare and business pathway teacher request that came out in the preliminary budget. Those positions are also funded through grants as we get them. And that private online coursework through BYU, I'm going with Brigham, is $79,000 that we pay for that we will not be paying for anymore for that. If we don't need those elementary staff, we're going to add that money back to circuit breaker. And we have gone through all of our student service and ELE positions, English language education positions, and shifted them based on the redistricting to ensure that all of our schools have adequate staffing, somewhat equal staffing, I would say as well, throughout the district. And then the mass health warrant article requested still sits there at $350,000 as we talked about. So that's how we got here. I do want to share though that we had a really big conversation about major cost reductions, knowing that we're using a significant amount of free cash, and you'll see this somewhat in the town finance presentation. So I wouldn't recommend these. I would never recommend these because they would decimate the school district. But I want people to know that we're talking about them and that we've been talking about them all year long, and it's really important to know that. We did talk about transportation that's not legally required, and that would save us around $500,000. There's no question. However, there would be increased traffic at each school. You can imagine if you've actually driven up and dropped your kids off in the morning, you know what those traffic circles are like. That would be substantial. We are fighting chronic absenteeism, right? Kids don't come to school. That will not help that situation. Safety risks for walkers, just Norwood road congestion in general, and possible need for increased crossing guards. Both pay-for-play athletics and pay-for-play performance, you can see these are general numbers, $890,000 for pay-for-play athletics, pay-for-performance of $350,000. Again, fewer participants, kids who are not engaged in school, increased fees for those users that want to stay. And a significant impact on the students in general. And again, athletics and performing arts are both staples of the Norwood community that I don't think anyone will want to see go, but those are things that we considered as we are moving through this process. Elementary interventionists, those interventionists that are there to support our students' behavioral challenges and our academic challenges.
So you have a question online.
Oh, about $800,000, yes. Online.
Go ahead, Ferris.
Yeah, hi. So we've gone through these paper plays in years past, and it bothers me a lot when you put fine arts in that category, treating it as an entertainment as opposed to a subject. I don't even know why that's coming up for consideration again. Because every time that comes up, we go through the same thing. And let's face it, language and fine arts in the schools, historically over the years, have taken the biggest cuts when we get into these type fixes. This has been going on since 2008.
I appreciate it, Mr. Ferris. I would say that nothing on this list is anything that I would recommend whatsoever. And nothing, as I go through this process, is, I would say, balanced higher over one another.
And to be clear, these items are not being cut from the budget.
These are not being cut from the budget. These are considerations that we had as we knew that the town was looking at using $7.5 million of free cash.
I understand. I'm just stating my concern that we're taking fine arts and making it a consideration. I mean, When did humanities and fine arts become secondary to education in general? That to me just doesn't make any sense, and that's what I'm trying to get across here.
Yeah.
That's why I think even putting into a consideration is disingenuous to the students and to what the schools should be trying to accomplish with a well-balanced education. And that's really all I'm saying.
I do not disagree. I would also say that, if I could get my slide deck back. I would also say that the academic behavioral interventionist, the after-school clubs and activities, the one-to-one technology are all things that are important as well. Now, on top of that, I have district-wide administration in here, $150,000, middle school and high school administration, $250,000. That impacts our freshman academy that we put into play this year, which has been substantial for kids to just learn organizational skills and how to be high school students. And again, teacher-supported discipline, right? Our administrators are taking care of discipline. We don't want our teachers not to be able to instruct and instead having to deal with those things. Those are things that come up there. That's $250,000. All the professional development for staff, $483,000. Supplies, software for each department. Who knows? We just probably cut a lot of it. But we're looking at what we would need to do our share of what could be an override conversation, and we have to look at all these things. I looked at class size. Right, our class sizes are so high that I actually took all of our numbers, all of our elementary numbers, and I tried to shift classes up to 26, 27 everywhere, and I couldn't reduce any based on what we did. So that would have been on this list as well. I would assume in any conversation you're talking about higher class size as well at the high school, middle school, and the elementary level. But we were trying to meet some kind of a number to kind of have an idea of what we might look at. And unfortunately, as much as I love fine and performing arts, and they are an academic part of our school, can't be untouched either. Everything would have to be touched in this process as we go through. But the idea here is that we are looking at all these things, and if we do come to you next year with more of a concern, then we'll have to bring this back. Please.
If you're going to look at that option, the fine arts and the athletics, that to me is a double-edged sword because of the enrollment numbers and in the, absentee rate will go up because those students who are in those programs may only be in school for those programs.
That's right. And then the Blue Hills program goes up because they have to go there to get that. Right? No, honestly, these again, I would never be recommending these. Like I can't honestly say these are something that would be good for Norwood at all. But if people are going to ask the superintendent of schools to look at reductions of upwards of $4 million, I have to look somewhere. And we are a bare bone budget, and I just need you to know that we are looking at these things. And as we go through the process, hopefully they're not on the table. Hopefully we can figure out a way to move past it, but we are considering it. Please.
Do we own our own buses in Norwood?
We do.
We contract out the big yellow buses. That's Connolly and Sons. We're gonna, next year we'll have 17 of those, so that's a vendor. We run our in-house special education transportation. We have 8 mini buses and we have 43 vans, and those drivers are our employees.
The good news is that we are at 2.96% for next fiscal year. Oh boy. So you can see, you'll see some FY26 original budget adjusting down. These are staff members from 577 to 569. That's actually transferring staff from operating to federal funding, just so you know. So that's the finances didn't really change too much. It's just making sure that we're allocating the best that we can in some of those areas. And we are at 579.9 this year with one increased FTE, which is that paraprofessional, for a 2.96% increase or $1.93 million. And then here quickly you can see kind of an overall idea of the salaries, what $2.813 million. The reductions of added district tuition, $1.1 million or so, about $180,000 of other increases, and then kind of non-salary decrease of $883,000. Which sits us here at 2.96. So I will take any other questions that you have. please.
Do we have anything in this budget here, 67 million, that demonstrate our academic achievement, our academic success?
Not here, but what I will share with you is that, and this kind of goes to a question I had earlier too. In January, I did a mid-year State of the Union, and we look at all of our academic, both for our high-need students, our lower-need students, in behavioral categories, in academic categories, in engagement categories, engagement in fine and performing arts, for example, athletics, all those pieces. And that'll be updated on May 20th, the school committee doing a final year State of the Union to see where we've gone, including all that behavioral data that we've been collecting over the year through the behavior interventionists and all that kind of stuff.
Mr. Ferris has a question.
Mr. Ferris.
Yeah, you said some of the funds were being, are coming from federal support. And the question I have is, what federal support is that, and how reliable is that we can commit to it?
Yeah, so our IDEA funds are the highest level of federal funds that we have for our special ed students. We know we are actually solid in all of those through FY27 and possibly through FY28 for now. Multiple staff members for special ed related services are funded through our IDEA funds at the federal level. But we are guaranteed pretty much, because the budget's already come out, we're good through FY27, and then FY28, we're feeling good about it too.
So we have a reasonable assurance that they'll get paid?
Yeah, we do. The state's already got the money, and they've already been doing the process of allocating.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes?
State contribution last year was about 18 million. What is it going to be this year?
For Chapter 70 funds? So we've been getting like $1.1 million increases the last couple of years. This year we're $235.
Yeah, it's actually the very last page of this, second to last page of the book shows the preliminary 27, yeah. We're going up 265.
265,000, so significantly less of an increase this year. However, the House did just pass their budget, and part of their budget is increasing the Chapter 70 aid from $75 per pupil to $125 per pupil, I think, around there. That could give us another $350,000 or so, but we're still unsure about that.
I'm sorry, second question. In reference to the actual money spent is significantly different from budget numbers. That's for filing for state monies. Did we shift some of those budget monies into the shared accounts that we have in the general budget? Is that where we got some of our savings?
So none of the savings here from the shared accounts?
Yeah, was an account or two, this is probably a Tony question.
Yeah.
Some of these might have gone over to, into some of our shared accounts.
None of these funds did, but I'll let Tony try to answer.
Yeah, no. So when we get state aid, it comes in as one whole revenue source, and there's a part of that is determined based on what an assumed benefit cost is, but we don't move it into that line. Everything just gets treated as a total revenue source. So the state gives us $19 million, we have a $19 million revenue. Technically, 20% of that's supposed to cover benefits, the rest is supposed to go to education, but state law also has everything that comes in as a revenue is a revenue. So it's not like, all right, this revenue source came in and it went to here, unless it's a specific grant.
Right, but there's about $25 to $30 million difference between the actuals if we count the shared monies versus that. Did we, and I have no problem with this, I'm just wondering whether did we move some of these accounts to make
No, I'm not sure.
the budget look better?
I'm not sure I get the question. When you're referring to shared monies, what are you talking about?
Well, we have shared accounts that are in the budget.
Well, so like facilities, for instance, is something that's here, correct?
Like, for instance, probably dumpster fees, probably,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's payroll in there that's.
Yeah, nothing that they get goes into any of those.
None of that, so that, the system you used before is still the same system you're using today?
Correct.
Yes.
That's basic.
You might be referring to, we used to do sort of a 55-45 revenue split. Some towns would do that. They would subtract them some costs and say there's $1 million left and 55 is allocated here, 45 is allocated here. We haven't done that since the last override, but the school money that comes in for grants and stuff is separate, but facilities is a $9 million budget funded by $9 million of tax dollars. And state aid, just, I know it's probably clear, but state aid to schools doesn't cover the whole school budget. It's not intended to.
Right,
It
so-
should, but.
So when you file for that state aid, you're using the actual.
We don't actually file for that state aid. It's formulaic based. It's actually, there's like 17 different points of the formula. They look at our students and they say, okay, you got 3,500 students, X in this category, Y in this category, Z in this category. They multiply it by a bunch of numbers they probably make up at DESE, and then they come out with Norwood gets $19 million. Is that about accurate?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has the changes in Washington DC impacted school budgets?
Yeah, it's made us a little bit on edge over the past year or so or more, there's no doubt. We had a quick question about free and reduced lunches in schools for a while. We have a revolving account for school nutrition that we kind of held and didn't do anything with just in case that did happen, so we could continue to provide school lunches. That actually did get fixed and changed and funded. Some of the budgets that came out at the federal level included significant cuts in Title I, significant cuts in IDEA. Those since got fully funded, so those are not an issue anymore. And as I said before, those are funded through FY28. So, but yes, there's definitely been some ups and downs and questions about what we might get hit on.
Do you think it's somewhat stabilized now, or are we still going to be facing some roller coaster rides?
I mean, I would say that we're good through FY27. I don't know what could happen next year as the budgets go through, and there's a lot of different avenues that the president or different the Senate or the House could go through to get different kind of things cut for different reasons. So nothing's perfect, but we're feeling pretty good because the money's being allocated through FY27 already.
What is the average class size at the high school, the junior high, elementary schools?
Yeah, elementary is tricky. It's probably around 20, I would say. 19 or 20 at the elementary is the class size, and that's because you have some that are 18. Now that's all changing next year, right? So that's really tricky to tell because we're moving all those kids all around, but I would say you'd see around 20. Middle school is probably around 22. High schools anywhere, I would say, because we have some AP courses, different things, some higher level courses, anywhere from, you could have a class of 14, I'm just going to say it, but you have classes of 24 as well. So you could 18, 19, I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We budget every year based on future expenditures, but our actuals consistently come in underneath that. If you look at like the actual summary on page 87 for the all funds and like what's funded by the budget, do we as a town calculate the delta between those in what, say, like school operations is contributing to free cash?
I'll take that.
Historically, the school budget doesn't contribute to free cash. It'll turn over maybe $40,000 or $50,000 a year to free cash. The budget turnbacks usually come from the general government budget.
Can we find those numbers anywhere?
We can. I think last year it was $40,000. Is that the right number?
I think so, and that might actually.
I believe we reported to FinCom on that in November, so we have something.
Yeah, we do have the numbers. It's usually not. That's not usually a significant number. Yeah, we can get that. Other questions on the school budget? All right, thank you, Superintendent Luff.
Thank you.
Everyone's getting a little tired. We have one more item to go through, so if you want to take a seventh inning stretch, that's okay. We'll get started on the next item in just a minute. I've lost my remote. Here we go. Oh, all right, we already have it up here. Article 7 would be to appropriate $1.8 million for public safety staffing, contingent on a Proposition 2.5 override. What that means is that on June 15th, there is a ballot question that if the community votes affirmatively for, we would be looking to add 18 positions to public safety, 13 in the police department, and 13 in the fire department. And sorry, the chief got excited for a moment. 13 in the fire department and 5 in the police department. The 13 in the fire department, 1 would be a training officer. The other positions would add to each crew. We run 4 crews in the fire department. I know we've done a number of presentations on this, and the fire and police department have. I'll get into a couple of the slides. As I mentioned, we're looking at $1.8 million for the total costs of 13 fire and 5 police personnel. The main reason that we're looking at this, and I'll briefly tell the story, we generally don't rush into trying to increase staff just because numbers have gone up, but our numbers have been going up for years and years and years. We then did a staffing study, which is what everyone does, to say, let's hope that this staffing study shows either that the numbers aren't going up or they are going up. Unfortunately, what we all know is what came out of both the fire staffing study and an internal look we did at the police department, that our call volume is through the roof. That is really what is driving the need for additional public safety staffing and the request to permanently increase the tax base to account for those 18 positions. It is really about the numbers going up. The work that police officers and firefighters do has gotten more complex. That creates a lot of challenges, but if we weren't seeing call volume increases the way we are, I don't think we'd be bringing this forward. Here we have fire department calls up 35% since 2020. Staffing is held flat. I mentioned earlier, prior to the pandemic, we've done about 5,000 EMS runs. We're at about 7,500 now. If you go back to the early 2000s, we're at about 2,500 EMS runs. So these numbers have, over a long period of time, continued to grow and grow and grow, the last 5 years in particular. Most communities in Massachusetts are seeing call volume go up in public safety, so it's not unique. We are particularly hard hit. We are particularly hard hit with the loss of a hospital, but it comes down to the call volume is going up and up and does not seem to be abating anytime soon. On the police side, same thing when you look at the call volumes. If you look at where we were in 2012 compared to where we are now, we've nearly doubled police call volumes. If you go back 10 years before that, it's the same thing. The volume of calls is just going up and up and up. Now, some of these calls can be a complicated call, like a domestic violence issue. Some of them could be very simple. I've got a neighbor's dog barking and I'd like a police officer to come and look at it. But they're all services that have to be responded to. So when you look at the incredible increase in the volume of calls, and you look at the increase in the complexity of the work, it leads to, we know that we're not staffing where we think we can safely take care of our existing officers in the community. The police ask in particular would add 3 sergeants, a detective, and a patrol officer. The reason for that is we are usually at 1 supervisor per shift, and we'd like to make sure we have 2 supervisors per shift. The reason we want to do that is in a major critical incident, you're tying up a supervisor for several hours, meaning that the rest of the town does not have a supervisor on to handle a major critical incident. And that doesn't necessarily need to be a major critical incident. It could be a domestic violence incident that could tie up a supervisor for several hours. Ms. Barrows, do you have a question?
I do. It's mostly for Chief Patton. I read the op-ed that you wrote in the paper regarding the social worker.
Oh, yes.
And I'm curious, this is not, should that position's not part of this?
No, that's a grant that we get from the state.
But if it goes away, is that you were saying?
Yeah, so if the state grant goes away, well, they've reduced it from 50 to funding for, it's a co-response grant where we have a person from Riverside who is a clinician, goes out to our calls with us, helps us with a lot of our mental health and a lot of our follow-up, and the goal is to reduce recidivism with mental health calls and get people help and things like that. Yeah, 100%. And so the funding for the state was $15 million. The last budget that I saw from the governor was to reduce that down to $4 million, which in essence will kill that program.
So we're not planning on funding for that through the override?
No, this is for police officers only.
Okay. Is there somewhere in the budget for that?
In our budget to
The
backfill.
potential role for that to stay?
We're hoping that the governor, so the year prior, the governor reinstated that portion of the budget.
Okay.
And we're hoping that they're going to do, that was kind of one of the reasons I wrote what I wrote,
Okay.
was to get that out there and say, hey, like, we need this. So hopefully they will reinstate this, because basically it's what everybody always says policing should be doing.
Yeah.
And then when they cut the funds for it, it's like, well, what the heck, so
Okay.
we're hoping.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Mackin's question?
How much of the spikes that we've received have been as a result of increased apartment complexes? It's my understanding in talking to a few of the merchants in the Shaw's area that they feel since the opening of certain places that the issues have quadrupled.
So I will defer to Chief Patton to answer that, but just remind everyone, we've had 2 apartment complexes built in 9 years. Avalon and Upland Woods, it's about 280 units between the 2 of them. But Chief, would you like to take that question?
I don't think there's really any way to sit back and say there's a correlation. We have people that commit crimes in all different places within the town of Norwood. Norwood's over 50% rentals in housing stock. So to sit back and say the 2 new ones are the cause of that, I don't think we could really say that.
Do we have any statistics that indicate how many calls we're getting from certain areas?
Sure, we have statistics on all of our call volume, but that doesn't, so where we get a call from, for example, if we get a call at Shaw's, for example, which has always been a super busy plaza because there's a lot of activity down there. A lot of the, the petty crime, the shoplifting and things, those are people that don't even live in town. So we'll get a lot of people out of Boston and we run into that quite a bit. We don't really track statistically where somebody lives from where the crime, we track calls by where we get the call from, not from where the person that committed the call came from. That would be very difficult to do. But what I can tell you is that a lot of our crime is, from people that don't live in Norwood. So for example, we've had crime at night where cars are broken into. Those are people that are driving through town and hitting multiple towns. I don't know if you saw the article the other day about Westwood Station with, car tires being, so there's roving, I hate to make it sound like roving dens of criminals, but that does happen. And that is something that we deal with as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Patrick Rubin, online, you had a question? Go ahead, Patrick.
I had one quick question about the fire calls. Is that because the EMS is rolled under it, or is there something driving an increase in fire-specific calls in town over time?
Sure, to clarify, that's fire and EMS calls. Both are up, both are adding to complexity.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. The question before I go to the next slide, we still have a few more slides on this. I've lost my remote. Okay. So the total ask comes in at $1.8 million, a permanent increase in the tax levy to be able to permanently increase public safety staffing. The impact and the way that breaks down is about $115 to the average taxpayer. The average home in Norwood, believe it or not, is assessed at $719,000 as of last year, roughly $9.60 per month. This covers part of the benefit cost as well as the staff cost of adding these positions permanently to the budget. Next slide. Yeah, oh, sorry, didn't see, go ahead,
I
Ann.
know this is probably a crystal ball question, but once we do these staff increases, how many years is this gonna hold us over before we have to revisit?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when we add to the tax levy, so we increase the tax levy permanently by $1.8 million, all future 2.5% increases are also based on that additional amount of money. So that generates maybe $40,000 or $50,000 a year. Will this hold us over for public safety staffing? Yes, we think we can. We do plan to possibly add more police staffing on an annual basis. We have the flexibility to add a position here or there, a position in a given year. Trying to actually change the staffing level is just not within the scope of a normal operating budget. That's not to say that there won't be an operating override in 2 to 3 years. We have been clear with that with town meeting for the last several years that there likely is one coming, probably in 2 years, that is separate, and that would be a general operational override. If we were to try to wait for that, first of all, we think that's 2 years out. It's going to take us time to get public safety hired and staffed up. And if we end up kicking that out a third year, and I'm not saying that we can, we just can't wait that long to permanently increase the public safety staffing. I'll go here and then to Mr. Brody.
Yeah. Could you do debt exclusion on this?
No, so debt exclusion is only for, the impact to your wallet and to all of our wallets would be the same. That's only for a capital item where you increase for a short period of time and then it goes away. And I know we've looked at, could we add it over time with staffing? You can do some of it, but with the fire department in particular, to get your crew to the level you need to get that crew to, we'd be looking at it over 8 to 10 to 12 years. Now we did, as I said, we've sort of waited until our call numbers have gone up and they've gone up and they've gone up. Now they're sort of permanently up. Not that you hope they go down, although you do hope that they go down, but it's not like we would just rush and make a big decision based on numbers after a couple of years. Which incidentally we did when we built the Coakley and the Savage, back when they were in the north and the south. We built 2 junior highs within a couple of years of each other, shut one down after 7 years, but I don't know, they were having fun in the 70s. Mr. Brody.
Yeah, can you please explain again what the 115?
That's the tax increase that the average homeowner will see if this passes at the ballot.
For the year?
For the year, yes. So about $9 a month, about $115 for the year, permanent increase. Just to be clear, so this is not a one-time. So if your tax bill's $7,000, it's going up to $7,100. From this, that doesn't count a normal 2.5 increase and any future overrides or debt exclusions. But that's for a house based at about $700,000 a year. Ms. Sullivan?
Just to follow up on Ms. Minkowicz's question, this will get the police and fire, this will get us to the next operational override? Or will this, like, how long will it actually last? Because this can only go up 2.5% going forward, and based on what we've seen in the budgets, it goes up more than 2.5%. So I just want to be really clear how long, it's not necessarily going to last like 5 years like we experienced, or 7 or 8 like the
Sure, 'cause
previous
it's-
I want that to be clear.
Sure, it's slightly different. We wouldn't necessarily do an override stabilization fund for sort of a single department. This covers the added staff cost. We are always going to have that pressure of public safety budgets going up 5 to 6%. You hope to balance that with other departments that aren't going up as much. In the current inflationary environment, that's tough. If we were to increase the number any further, you're sort of just raising taxes, saying, well, let's raise them and kind of hold on to them. It's also important to note there will be savings in both the police and the fire budget that'll help absorb those costs over the next few years. We originally looked at whether we booked them as part of the number, and the discussion was, no, go in with the full number, knowing that there'll be some savings. We know on the police side there'll probably be about $100,000 in overtime and holiday savings, and we know that on the fire side we'll see substitution, if not stay flat, come down, because we're going to be able to have more officers per shift. So we're not booking those savings, but in the subsequent budget, maybe instead of it going up 6% next year, it actually only goes up 4% or 3%, because there's some savings in the budget. It was yep, Ms. Barrows? No, go ahead.
Questions. The cost of the personnel includes everything from retirement to insurance to salaries?
Yeah, it's primarily the salaries, and we have that benefit cost number there. We don't, we wouldn't raise taxes and sort of put it right into health insurance, because that number would change, but we're accounting for that cost. And in addition to this, there's about $200,000 in savings between the two budgets.
Okay, this is the health insurance was that big hit in the earlier part of the budget, so I just want to make sure. And then the second, do the current facilities that we have, because hiring personnel comes with additional cost of facilities, riding on the trucks, cars, the number of cars they have, equipment does this include all of that?
This does not include that. There's a separate article that would appropriate the new equipment for these officers. The operating budget can generally handle routine changes in equipment, but a set of turnout gear, which is always a capital project, is about $10,000 for a firefighter. So the next article that we'll talk about when we're done with this shows a separate appropriation to make sure we can equip all of these officers. As for the facilities, we can handle it. They'll be a little tight at the police station, at the fire station with additional staff, but the bunk rooms can accommodate the additional firefighters that we're adding. And the union has looked at that and they said they can do it, and the chief and his deputies have looked at it and they can do it.
And does that number include that $10,000 per cop per
No, it doesn't.
officer?
No.
So our actual yearly will be more than the 150?
No, because most of that equipment is a one-time purchase. It does get replaced over time, but we don't, for instance, hire a firefighter and add $10,000 into the turnout gear budget.
Thank you.
Okay, great question. Mr. Rafanos?
In some of the previous presentations and papers, the previous amount was about 1.5 million. So why the $300,000 increase in this presentation?
Sure, so that's a great question. Mr. Rafanos' question was previously we looked at $1.5 million and now it's $1.8 million. That 1.5 number included those savings that we talked about would be in each budget. So in some ways that's the cheapest number you could possibly do it at, but that's including that we're going to make those savings in the next fiscal year's budget. So by not booking those, your number is probably a little bit more where it should be. It's sort of a question of, do we want to raise taxes enough so that we'll never have to worry about this? Well, we need to probably raise about $7 million and we would never have to worry about this. If we want to go as cheap as possible, well, we could go less than that, knowing that we're not going to have everyone hired on July 1st. But what's that rational number based on a reasonable cost per employee? That next year's budget will be fine. The following year's budget won't all of a sudden see a spike of 10 or 20%. But not booking those savings, if you will, is what that delta was. Great question. Other questions before I go to the next slide? I think there's one more ballot. So this is the path forward for where this would go. We have the Board of Selectmen's done a workshop. We've met with the Finance Commission. They still haven't rendered a decision yet. I believe they will later this week. The board voted on the 24th to put it on the warrant. We are in the process of doing public information sessions. There are and have been a number of public information sessions. Those are a great chance to go to and really hear from our cops and firefighters what they are experiencing on the ground. You can hear it from me, you can hear it from the chiefs, but to really hear from our officers on the ground, those are great opportunities to do so. Post-town meeting, those will continue. But the next step in this process is a town meeting vote on May 11th, if we get to the budget on the first night of town meeting. And then the ballot vote, it says June 9th.
I think it's the 15th.
It's the 15th, I think that's just a typo. And then the public will come out, vote on the 15th. If it is a affirmative vote, it will be effective as of July 1st. It will take us some time to, of course, staff up, but the money will be appropriated as of July 1st.
When does that hit our taxes?
It will be usually with your second quarter tax bill next year.
And when is the public vote?
June 15th. Sorry, that says the 9th, that's a typo in there, it's the 15th. And town meeting votes next Monday. Other questions on public safety staffing override? Oh, Mr. Connolly.
With the requirements of the fire department, equipment, and their fallout gear, is the current facility adequate to manage that expansion and the personnel?
Yes, Mr. Connolly's question was, is the facility adequate to handle the expansion of additional gear, particularly on the fire side? We are budgeting for additional lockers. There is space for it. We are looking at doing a small addition as part of a capital project unrelated to this at the fire department that can accommodate that additional locker space. Firefighters do need a good size locker gear, so it all works within our current facility. We've had a lot of issues with the public safety building over the years, but at least from a size perspective, I guess the one benefit to not increasing your staff is the building was built understanding there'd be growth, and it just took 25 years before we actually had any growth. So the compendium article to this is the amount we would be appropriating $180,000 to equip these firefighters and police officers. Firefighter turnout gear is about $10,000 a set. A police officer needs to be equipped not only with their uniforms, but with a vest that costs a few $1,000s, as well as a sidearm or other equipment that they use. So this vote would also be a contingent vote. Town meeting would, should they approve this, it is contingent on the override passing on June 15th. Obviously, if that were to not pass, then this article would be moot. But this takes care of that year one equipment for firefighters, the additional firefighters and police officers. Mr. Kenichi?
So on this year one equipment and gear, do firefighters and police officers typically rely on the town to buy their uniforms, or do they buy them themselves?
No, well, we either purchase them or they get a stipend to purchase them.
How did you determine the staff, the number on the staff?
So, great question. How do we determine the number of the staff? So 13 on the police side and 5 on the fire side. Nope. Sorry. You think I know by now? I just, the chief keeps getting happy, sorry. 13 fire and 5 police with the idea that we still need to increase police. On the fire side, we did a staffing study because fire is a lot more complicated in some ways from a staffing perspective than the police department for a couple of reasons. One, whether or not your fire department has an EMS department is actually one of the most important things you have to look at and how you staff that EMS department. By way of example, Dedham has 60 firefighters, we have 60 firefighters. Dedham doesn't run an ambulance service, so their fire staffing is significantly larger. You then have to look at the risk profile in general of the community. We're not simply a small bedroom community, we are an industrial community with a lot of commercial growth. So we looked at how do we get to what's called the NFPA 10 standard, and that's sort of the best practice recommended staffing for fire engines and fire departments. Now those NFPA 10 guidelines, 1710 guidelines, are really designed for a community that has residential single-family homes. If you have a lot of commercial base, you should really go higher than that. We decided not to do that. We are looking to get really at the beginning of where we would be recommended, not even where we'd ideally like to be. If we were to ask the fire chief how many firefighters we need, we'd probably be 20 above that. The training officer is in need for the training that we have to do. We're asking for money for firefighter training. Police officers are required to have 40 hours of training a year. Firefighters actually aren't required to have any training a year, as frightening as that sounds. So we want to make sure we're doing close to the equivalent of fire-specific training. They have to do some EMS retraining, but it's very hard for us to take a group of firefighters and actually have them practice for 4 or 5 or 6 hours without having, we have to take them off the crew and they have to do it at overtime. So the full-time training officer is the person who's going to build and manage those trainings to make sure that they're effective and to make sure that that number, that training dollar that we're asking for is being used effectively. On the police side, I'll get to questions in just a second. On the police side, the FBI for years has published a general standard of where police staffing should be. and roughly where it should be. We looked at that and compared it to our operations, and we noticed two things. One, we're quite a bit below it. Two, we're below some comparable communities. And three, there's a lot of things that we'd like to do, but when we do them, what it does is it always pulls somebody off patrol. And at some point, if we don't have officers out there on patrol, that becomes a challenge. That's where we make a lot of stops. That's where we make a lot of arrests. That's the quality of life issue for the community. Now, one of the positions we're looking to add is to permanently make sure we have somebody assigned to a DEA task force, for instance. The reason we're looking to do that is we can do that now, but we are pulling somebody off patrol. I mentioned that police staffing is a little bit easier, is maybe not the word, more flexible than fire staffing. You have a command staff during the day that can help respond to incidents. You can pull one person off the road and say, hey, if it's a slow day, come here in the office and you're going to get some training. You can't do that with fire staffing because you need a certain number of people on the engine performing the duty. We can't take a 2-person ambulance crew and say, hey, you bang out and train for 4 hours today and just let one person drive in and take care of you at the same time. Now, 9 police officers is actually what would get us to close to that FBI standard. We are going to look if the budget allows after this to see if we can add an officer a year and evaluate each year to go beyond that. We didn't include it in this because we think this is where we'd like to be, and we're going to have to balance that with other needs in future years. Yep, go ahead, Tank.
So when they go out on a call for a fire, they're supposed to man an engine with 4
Best case scenario, yeah.
and 4 on the ladder, all right?
5, I think, is the best staffing for the ladder, right, John?
That would be ideal. Yeah, I mean, that's
We're
a
asking
national
Yeah.
number. So what are they running now, 3?
John, do you want to talk about the crew staffing?
Yes. So we run 2 engines in a ladder, sir. We have a 4, 3, and 2 setup. Lieutenant is on each front and ladder piece. By going to 3 more, we will be running ideally a 4-man, 4-man, and 4-man ladder, providing the proper staff.
So
Again, we're going to a single-family home, and due to our industrial base, we should be going more. This is where we're beginning. This would up the safety of both the community and the firefighters.
Yeah, and then with the ambulance too, they're going out for medical calls.
So on a report of fire, we send both of our ambulances. Unfortunately, due to the hospital being closed, those ambulances are never in town. And many times, due to the fact that we have a PB ambulance, or given the nature of the call, they take an additional firefighter to assist with the paramedic in the back for life-saving gear. So that further reduces the number of personnel responding to a fire. So there are many times when you can show up to a fire and you have 8 or 7 firefighters on that initial. What the NFPA standard says, we should have 17. Our gentlemen are responding. Our firefighters are responding.
Now, would it be more reasonable to hire more paramedics?
We only hire paramedics outside of some very small situations. Heaven forbid a firefighter passed away and there's a legacy. Our current, you must be a paramedic to be hired currently, yes. But that's, again, a transition that will take time.
And I understand it, with the hospital being down, you get more medical calls, they're going out, with the fire calls.
Well, it's not more medical calls. The calls don't have an effect. It's a longer duration. And it's not, that 39 minutes that Mr. Mizuko alluded to, that is your transport. But you also have to realize that they now are responding back. And that's not lights and sirens. And that's prior to them even having to stop and get medication. So you have agreements with the hospital. For us, it's Needham. So if we take a patient in town and medication is given, they don't come back to us. They go from Boston back to Needham, back to us. So that's a reduction in ambulance, a reduction in staffing. But specifically to the fire side, that's the time that those 2 paramedics, EMTs, whatever they may be, personnel are not going to respond given to any situation, including fire.
And by that being said, that in the future, we looking at another firehouse down the road?
We are always looking at another firehouse, but that's a different, those are conversations that we have had. But this, currently, our station can handle the increase in staffing for personnel, for sleeping quarters, and for gear with what we currently have.
Right now,
we have done it, the chief, myself, members of the department, the union, we've all looked at it, and it works.
Yeah, and you'll have a brand new kitchen too, so they'll be out there.
We are, thank you for the kitchen, we appreciate it.
I'm going to go to Ms. Nankowitz and then Mr. Donnelly.
This is a good point to use to fight with the governor about the hospital, that fire piece. Is there grant funding out there for training for police and fire that we could get from the state or from the feds or the National Patrolmen's Association or something like that?
So there's Bureau of Justice grants that we get, and we seek those a lot.
you know, it just depends on the grant, so there's, some grants require you to put money in, you know, a specific amount, and sometimes they're very specific about what they want to train you on. And they're not necessarily in line with what the requirement is in the state of Massachusetts. So sometimes it's not helpful. We're always seeking grants for anything we can get our hands on. And we've had some success over the years.
Does the state provide some funding for training then?
Yeah.
Yeah, not really. I mean, the state runs the
They
academies.
mandate it. It's usually an unfunded mandate, to be quite honest with you.
It sounds like it.
Mr. Donnelly?
So the data on fire calls provided by the consultant shows obviously a dramatic increase. I'm trying to recall, did he provide any information about projected calls? And that's not as difficult to do, future raises in those calls, and if so, we would need to revisit this issue if the call rate continues to escalate at the rate they are today.
I'd have to double check the study to see if he did. If our call rate does continue to go up, could we find ourselves here in another couple of years? I suppose that's possible. I mean, we've spent years getting to where we are. I hope it does not continue to increase at this pace. We're at 7,500, that EMS number. If it's at 15,000, sure, things are going to have to change. It generally goes up slow enough that we have enough time to react. So this will hopefully be the next generation of staffing for police and fire. Again, if the fire number goes from 17,000 to 39,000 to 80,000 in 5 or 6 years, I don't have an answer to that as to what we would have to do. It probably would not look nice. Question, Madam Moderator?
Yeah, we're taking, I understand if we're going for an override, why we would take the 1.8, figuring we want to get the full amount. First question is, how long do we think it's going to take us to hire that many people? What happens with the excess money from that may not be spent? And why are we doing the full equipment all the first year rather than staggering over a couple of years?
So great questions. I'll answer those in reverse order. The reason we're doing all the equipment in the first year is we need to be able to equip the firefighters and the police officers when they start. So we'll have folks hired by the end of the first year. If we waited another year, I can't hire somebody if I don't have the appropriation to give them the gear. They need to be geared up before they go out. In terms of what happens to any unspent money, that just would become free cash in a future budget. So let's say the total police and fire budget come in under next year, because they will, because we won't have everyone hired as of July 1st. That number, let's say it's $700,000, that would become free cash. Or we may want to transfer it into the pension fund to sort of make a deposit on future pension costs or something like that. But it would just go back into the free cash calculation. It doesn't get spent on any other items. In terms of how long will it take us to get staffed up, probably to the midpoint of the year before we're there, but that's going to depend on a couple of things. Depends on whether or not we get trained people. So the cost of trained officers is higher. So on the police side, if we hire officers who are already officers elsewhere, that cost is a bit higher, but we don't need to bring them in, pay them, and send them to the academy for the months that they're at the academy. Same thing on the fire side. One of the last firefighters we hired was a firefighter paramedic in another town. That's great. You go on, you do a little field training, and you're ready to go. That upfront cost is a little bit higher, but you're not spending all that time with them in training. The goal would be to try to get as close to fully staffed by mid-year, 3/4 of the way into the year, because it's just going to take some time to get folks hired, get them trained, get them through the academy and up and running. Is that all 3 questions? All right. Ms. Haley.
Thinking about the turnout gear for the fire department, I would assume that you wouldn't be able to purchase this before you have the people with you because of size. I mean, or did I misunderstand what you just said?
No, you're right, but we would need the appropriation to be able to do it.
Okay.
Because so let's say we go to hire somebody on August 1st, we find, Alan becomes a paramedic and we want to hire him. If we don't have the appropriation, we don't want to hire him and put him on the payroll without being able to purchase the gear. So I guess to your point, on July 1st, we're not going to instantly buy $180,000 worth of gear.
Just wanted to make sure.
We just need the appropriation to be able to do so. That's a good clarification.
That's kind of what I was.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not buying all the gear on the first day. No, that's a good clarification.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, who would like to go through the whole presentation again? All right.
We do have one more.
Oh, we do have one more slide? Oh, sorry, I almost forgot the election expenses. The town clerk would have killed me. It's almost as bad as scheduling an election without telling the town clerk. So sorry, we do need to have an election in June. Elections do come with a cost. This would pay for the cost of the June election for this override. Questions on the election cost?
Do we have the election even if the override doesn't pass town meeting?
Yes, one of the three things that selectmen do in their important requirements is they can set ballot questions, and they have set a ballot question. So it is going to the ballot on June 15th, one way or another.
On
Tank?
the election day, can we have it at one location?
No, I wish we could. That would be easier, but people in Norwood are used to voting at their district locations. If we were to try to change it and say everyone just vote at town hall or vote at the high school, I think you'd create a lot of voter confusion on that day.
You've done it before, if I remember.
We've done it half days.
Yeah.
I don't think for an override.
Yeah, we've done. I don't know that we've ever done it one location. Where we've done half days, if you had to fill like a position in the middle of the year and you know it wasn't going to be a big election, you might be able to do that. But I don't think we need as many precincts as we have. But I think changing it would just confuse a lot of voters. Prior to doing any voting at town hall, people would come in and insist they voted at town hall before, and we tell them we've never done this here before. They would say, "No, I voted here last year." You didn't, but I don't know what to tell people.
It was a presidential election.
But this is well before we did any of that. But Mr. Orfanos?
So is our Monday's gonna now be our election days?
I believe Mondays have always been election days.
Town elections.
For town elections, yeah.
For town elections?
Yeah. Yep. Some towns do town meeting in June and they do their election in May. Might make the weather a little nicer for people holding signs, but we'll have a charter review discussion at a different time. If there are no other questions, thank you everyone for bearing with us for a lengthy session. We will be back in this room Wednesday night for the CPC articles, which are very exciting, and a number of citizens petitions proving that democracy is alive. Thank you everyone for being here, for taking the time.